a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Jeremy Lee in the building and every guest that you ever needed. Sports cards after hours keep the hobby heated. Updates, hobby talk like you never seen it. Sports cards live and none could ever beat it. Sports cards is a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Welcome to another episode of Sports Cards Live with your host, Jeremy Lee.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 287, I believe. 287 of Sports Cards Live. It is Saturday night, October the 25th, 2025. My name is Jeremy Lee. And a few announcements before we dive in. Fanatics Collect weekly auction ending watch party will be going off tomorrow night here on the channel. If you are thinking about adding a grail to your collection, check out Fund Your Cards, the hobby's top consolidator. They will help you finance your high-end purchases using your own cards. Visit fundyourcards.com. And guys, collectors across Canada trust Mint Inc. to deliver the ultimate hobby experience for live whatnot streams and auctions, 2 grading breaks, and a full retail store just north of Toronto. They do it all, and they're buying cards and collections 7 days a week. Shop online anytime at mintinc.ca with worldwide shipping. Mint Inc., where collecting comes to life. If you are looking to sell your vintage collection, Leighton, Sheldon at Just Collect offers competitive and transparent valuation and payment process and would love to speak with you. You can email Leighton at justcollect.com, and GP Sports is your go-to for hockey card breaks every Wednesday and Friday, streaming here on YouTube. Visit gpsportscards.com for breaks and product drops. And for real-time sports data, check out Rolling Insights. Their data feeds power major platforms and give fantasy players and businesses a real edge. No more spreadsheets. Visit rolling-insights.com. And Chronosio is now offering flexible pricing, so you only pay for what you need. Try the new pricing slider or save with their annual plan. Pay for 10 months, get 12. Start managing your collection smarter at home.chronosio.com. And if you would like to sell your cards on eBay at Skip the Hassle, message me on Instagram or email me, jeremy@slabsharks.com, and I will help you consign your cards with Slab Sharks. And guys, check out Card Ladder, cardladder.com. We got an affiliate link down below. Don't forget, this show is available on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Please leave a rating or review. Greatly appreciated. Huge thanks to all of our loyal viewers and podcast listeners. As always, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the YouTube channel and the podcast for that matter. As always, your comments and your questions are in play. With that, let's bring out my good buddy. You all love him, from Santa Cruz, California, Mr. Joe Poirot. What is up, buddy? How are you?
All is well, Jay Lee. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, bud. I'm doing well. I'm doing well too. You know, we're gonna have a fun show. We've got you for a while. Leighton Sheldon is gonna join us shortly. We're gonna have Ben Hossler from Rolling Insights coming on, talking some football. We're gonna have Chris McGill, Josh Adams. But we have about 25 minutes here, just you, me, and the chat to kick things off. We've got some topics to discuss. There's some things going on. Before we get into those topics and the chat even, and what's going on with you? We've talked over the past couple of weeks. You know, you've been building up a war chest. You're looking to kind of pick up a banger of a card for the collection. Have you made any moves lately for your personal collection? Have you been selling more cards? Have you picked up that big piece you're looking for? What have you been up to collection wise?
Thanks for asking. Yeah, I did pick up, I think I may have mentioned this, but I picked up a Buy It Now 1953 Mickey Mantle, kind of a PSA 1, beautiful for the grade. And that took a little bit out of the war chest, but the war chest is still there. And so I'm assessing. I enjoyed you and Adam on the Thursday night premiere. It went on and on and on. And the cards that I was looking at, I got well priced out of. So I think the market is strong, especially on those high profile auctions and the cards. You know, we were talking the other day, Jaylee, I know it's hyperbole, but like, is everyone looking for the same 20 cards? I think you kind of said no, but there's maybe a way to look at the hobby where there are certain things people just get excited about, you know, whether it's Kaboom or Downtown or some other, flavor of the month, if you will. I know in the vintage world, it's the Walter Johnson portrait, or it's, the red Ty Cobb, or, people get excited about certain issues. So anyway, I still have the war chest. I'm still assessing if I wait long enough, maybe the market will cool off and I'll get into something even better than I would right now.
So you're kind of holding tight, and you're going to see what comes up week after week on Fanatics Weekly, Premier, and anywhere else that you're looking. Yeah.
Yeah, I vault with Fanatics, so it's kind of easy. I'm trying to branch out more and get into the alts, and there's some other cool auction houses. I've never done Golden, but mostly I just kind of stick with it because it's familiar and it's where the majority of my vaulted cards are.
Fair. Well, good to hear. I mean, at least you're feeling comfortable with things. That's important. So for myself, I had a mail day the other day from Classic Auctions up here, a Canadian auction company. They specialize in hockey. I'd say, of course, but yeah, of course, I guess. And I had won in an item in their auction that ended about a month ago or so, a card that I really wanted. In hockey, there were no sets from like 1940 until 1951. 51 Parkhurst came out, and it's a 105 card set, I believe, and it's just filled with the rookie cards of guys like Gordie Howe and Maurice Richard and Terry Sawchuk and Doug Harvey. Doug Harvey was the defenseman who was kind of like Bobby Orr before Bobby Orr came into the league in 1966. And anyway, that's 1951. They're actually I've just pulled them out because here's my copies of my Gordie Howe and my Maurice Richard rookie cards. Blank back, but they're awesome. They are awesome. They're iconic in hockey, and these are the two kind of most important cards in the 51 Parker set. But I also love the 52 Parker set, the second year of Parkhurst, and for a very long time, I had owned three of the most important cards, in my opinion, being the second year Gordie Howe here in the middle with the yellow background, and then the second year Terry Sawchuk, which I just think is an awesome card with the people in the stands behind there. I love that. And the Tim Horton of Tim Horton's Coffee. This is his rookie card. And I wanted the Maurice Richard for a long time, and it's a hard card to find, and I finally got it, and it came from Classic Auction. So here's my latest edition, and then I put the four together, and it's what I call a flight. I have a flight of 52s now, and it's a complete flight. There's no real other cards in this set that I'm kind of striving to pick up. I could go for the Doug Harvey, or there's Alex Del Vecchio and Ted Lindsay. There's some other great ones, but I'm pretty much done at four. And so it's nice to have my four cards finally together. And very, very happy with that. Also, as I talked about a couple shows ago, I also in that auction picked up a pair of game used gloves worn by Matt Sundin of the Toronto Maple Leafs. So those also came. So I'm going to come and grab a display cabinet or a display holder for those from Pather at the Expo 2 weekends from now. So yeah, pretty excited to add the second year Maurice the Rocket Richard. Pretty fun stuff.
Good to scratch the itch, and well played. Looks like a well composed flight there.
I'm pleased. I was using that language on Instagram, and someone said, "Oh, I didn't know what a flight was." Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of something that we came up with on here several months ago, and I'm probably the only person in the hobby that uses the term, but I'm using it. I like it. And someone said, "Oh, I did that with 1968 tops or something like that," and I put together 6 cards. He said, "I don't know if that's too many for a flight, but I'm guessing it is." I'm like, "It's up to you." Yeah. I'm not the boss of what you think. If you think 6 is good, that's good. That works for me.
It all depends on how many little holders they have when they bring it out, right? I've seen 3, I've seen 6, 4 is a good one.
Well, and that's the thing, right? You're talking about how many holes are. Yeah. The term for me came from when you'd go to a pub and you'd order a flight of beers to sample all the different beers that they had on tap, sort of thing. So that's where the term comes from. You have, and it's also kind of neat because it rhymes with type, and there's a well-known hobby, vernacular that was type collecting. And I didn't always know what that was, but type collecting is when you collect like one card from every set or one from whatever, era or sport you're interested in. But that's type collecting, where you just want all the sets represented. And then you have set collecting, where you want the whole checklist. Now I put flight collecting somewhere right in the middle. So
Yeah, no, I do it. I do it in even modern with certain parallels. Like for whatever reason, this not so well known basketball card set Recon. I like the orange first off the line. It's usually to 12 or 18, and I've got like maybe 4 or 5 of those. And then I also like the platinum swirls, which are to 3. And so I did just actually pick up a pretty nice one. I'll mention it in the next show when I get a hold of it. But anyway, it is fun. Flight collecting, type collecting.
Yeah. And to me, it's like, it can be modern, vintage, anywhere in between. It can be by player. Maybe you just want, you don't want to get their whole player run. Maybe you just want 3, 4, 5 of that player's cards.
Right.
It's really it just allows you to really, as they say, collect what you like, if you know,
dial in. Yeah.
Yeah. If you know what you like.
Not be a slave to the checklist or, the got to do this, got to do. It's like, hey, you're the master of your own destiny here.
As Brett on Stacking Slab says, you are the CEO of your PC. Yeah, exactly. So you can decide what makes sense and what doesn't, as far as that goes, for sure. Well, let's say hello to the chat. Kevin Hawthorne. We got Laura. Good evening, Laura. Jacob Dahl. Brad's Vintage. What's going on, Brad? Bob Boozle challenges Jeremy to a poker. Yeah, I'm down. I'll play poker.
Be careful, Bob Boozle. Jeremy knows a thing or two about cards.
I'll play some poker with you, Bob. Chris, what's going on? Will Smith of the San Jose Sharks is clutch. Good evening, Ross. Linda's first. Welcome to the show. Jayhawker. Good evening. Called Shot. Curmudgeon is here. Willie T is here. We got Skeppy. The shirt tonight is the Red Heart. Red Heart, the big league dog food from the old Red Heart. Red Heart, 1954 Red Heart, I believe.
Very nice.
Yeah. Trees and cardboard. Good evening, Jeremy in California. I don't know what happened as of last week, but now with the names I'm seeing of everyone in the chat, it's being displayed differently. Maybe that's a setting I need to change, but we're seeing the whole instead of just the name you want. So anyway, at least gives me a better idea who you are. Maybe Chris from Missouri. What's up, Chris? The Cardboard Corner. Good evening. 99-cent sports card. What's happening with you? James Wynn, good to see you as well. Yankees fan is here. Habs win. The Montreal Canadiens win for the game 216. Welcome to the show. Peacemakers E105. Whoa, yes, the Baltimore News Ruth. That's on my list to talk about. So I'm just going to make I'm making my list right now. There we go. Wrote that down. Brad wants to know, Joe, the 53 tops or the 53 Bowman mantle are you referring to?
It was the tops.
Mookie says, Joe, don't bring that war chest to poker games with point guards. Yeah, right on. BWS, the 53 mantle to me is such an interesting looking card. Makes me feel a connection to the past. Yeah, they are beautiful. No doubt. Piccolina the cat. What's going on? Boo 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 Goo. Gavin McInnes here. What's up, Gavin McInnes? Bob Boozle. Let's combine our war chest and form an index. Yeah, or a syndicate. I love that we can now refer to like all these big cards. Like, it must have been purchased by the syndicate. It's just the syndicate now. The good old syndicate. Jake Dahl says classic auctions is awesome. I'm a member of them as well and hope to win some PC items as well someday. Good luck. Chris says go Dodgers. I say go Blue Jays. Double D Dylan, what's up, buddy? Glad you popped in any event, Dylan. Always good to see you. Brad says, how bad to game use glove smell? Well, here they are. Let's see how I can't believe I'm about to do this. I'm really nervous because and look at how worn these things are. Like they are like holes in the fingers and let's have a look at the other one.
Those are authentic. I'm going to go out on a limb and say they're authentic.
Yeah. Okay. Hold on. This is disgusting, but let's see. I'm going to smell inside this glove. Oh boy.
What's
up? They actually don't smell so bad somehow.
How old are they?
Really getting a good whiff in there. They don't smell so bad.
What year?
Well, I don't know. Sometime in the 90s. I'd have to go check the auction listing. I don't remember what
It's a
year.
long time to sort of lose its smell. It's probably would have been a lot smellier in the 90s.
Probably something, either that or my smell sense is off. BWS, it's 4 in Hawaii. He's going for glass off West 238th Street. Been using flight since you said, okay, right on. I'm glad you are. Boozle says, checking the glossary for sports card investing for dummies for Jeremy's term. What's up, Craig's Cards? Good to see ya. What do you say? Pens, Blue Jackets, fun game. Got my hockey juices going again. Right on. Inspired Sports Cards. Good evening to you. There's Tony, Southern Collector. What's going on, Tony?
Everyone's names are different. It's like you didn't even know who I was. You were like, "Who's that guy with the wrench?" It's at Pleasure Point. What's going on, Pleasure Point? It's like, no,
I'm used to seeing Joe.
It's me.
I'm using Joe Poirot on my Pleasure Point, but I put it together. What's up, Josh? 90s Auctions. He'll be joining us a little bit later. Yes, Craig. Usually it shows up as Pastor Craig. Now you're Craig's Cards. What's up, Foul Ball 475? Welcome to the show. Josh says, strong sale for Ruth. Great card. Well, yeah, strong sale generally, but not compared to the last time it sold. Skeppy says, what's your take on Snipe and Probstein leaving eBay? I'm excited to see. Snipe is not live yet, I don't believe, but in listening to Probstein speak on a couple of podcasts, I am very excited to see it and to see how it works and to see what sort of impact it has on the hobby, if any. I think it's going to. And eBay loses their biggest, or maybe now second biggest seller currently. Their biggest seller all time, I think. I have heard now that PSA has overtaken as being the biggest eBay seller in the sports collectible category, or sports card and memorabilia category. So my take is waiting and seeing, eager to see what happens for sure. Yeah, BWS, I don't know what happened. Don't know what's different, but it's not just you. It is everybody for sure. BTG says smell for the hobby. I think I did that, but it wasn't that bad. Do you catch a baseball with those gloves? No, Jeremy, you hold a hockey stick with those gloves. 90s grunge gloves. Good evening, Card Story. Hello, Orlando. Good to see you. Shaheen. What's going on, Shaheen? Legacy Cards has a 6T210 Joe Jackson right now. What's up, Jeremy? Swoop says, sounds like an interesting topic this evening. I'm sure it will be. Craig says, when is Probstein leaving? I think his last items maybe have ended, but or maybe have started, and he's officially launching his own platform early November. I think the first items will end on Snipe, which is SNYPE. I think it's on November 17th. What's up, Rob? Good to see you, bud. The Hammer Pleasure Point Pizza was my spot when I lived on the West Coast. 4-1 Dodgers says Orlando. Thanks for the update. Anthony Aiello, hello to you. Yeah, so, okay. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here tonight. It's going to be a fun discussion. Let's talk about the Babe Ruth for a second, though. Joe, do you know what? Are you up to date on that card sale?
I saw like a auction preview where it was mentioned, but I didn't really realize. Did it fall below expected sale?
Well, yeah. So what happened was, this is the 1914 Baltimore News, Babe Ruth, and the card sold for $7-point-something million a few years ago, I believe. Here, why don't we do this? I'm actually going to bring up Card Ladder, and let's go to Card Ladder and bring up the sale. I'll share my screen so we can all see it. Just let me get logged in here. And it's the Baltimore News Babe. So they don't have the new sale listed yet. It doesn't look like, but there we go. So it's this card here. I think it's this. The image isn't pulling up for us, but it's this item right here, sold for $7.2 million, December 3rd, 2023. And this exact item, my understanding is, just sold again, like in the last couple of days, for I think it's $4 million, maybe 4.2. But I think the word is that the owner of it lost $3 million in 2 years, under 2 years, lost $3 million. As Tony says, someone took a beating. As Tony says. So
that is a beating.
Yeah, that's a beating. That's a $3 million beating. And But you sell that into, like, listen, there's a couple things that could be happening here with the seller. Maybe the seller needed to get out. Maybe their financial, and I don't know who owned that card. I have no idea. So maybe some of you guys do know that, but maybe the seller needed whatever money they could get and had to sell. Maybe they're under some financial duress. Maybe the seller just thought they would make some money and sell the card because the market's hot. Or maybe the seller wasn't ever really intending to own it for a long time and just wanted to flip it and took a beating. So, and I'm sure there's other plausible situations or scenarios that could also explain the situation. I don't really know. When Leighton comes on in about 10 minutes, we'll get his thoughts too, Joe, since he's definitely a vintage expert, and see what he thinks what happened. But as Orlando says, someone got a deal. Well, they only got a deal relative to this $7.2 million comp that happened on REA auctions on December 3rd, 2023. They only got a deal if that $7.2 million was a fair price. And again, it's so awkward to say, because it just comes down to who's buying at the time, right? It really has nothing to do on a card like this with, like, it's not like it's a card that sells regularly where we know what its valuation is or should be. It doesn't sell enough to really maintain a value. So 7.2 might have been the value then. Maybe it literally did go down in value, but it's just so hard to say. They're kind of all over the place. But when you're talking about such big money, it just becomes risky to get into it and risky to get out of it, I suppose. And any thoughts, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, the higher those kind of prices go, the more massive the fluctuations can be when it comes to market, right? So that's something that's been in my mind a little bit, like in my own little fishbowl. The difference between popping off $300 to $750 cards versus going something 4 or 5 times that. That's kind of my range of pickups. There's more fluctuation even in a $10,000 card. So when I see these numbers, it definitely is sort of a cautionary tale. And I can't say that I've seen that card or longed for that card in a way that makes me that surprised. I know it's been around a long time, but I don't know if it's had the same popularity that the Gaudis have had. And so personally, I'd probably, if I was rolling in those kind of things, I'd probably be looking for things that are a little more flagship Ruths. But again, it's just not my lane to get outside of those Gaudis.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm all about the Gaudis myself. I mean, you've got you got the 1916s as well, the M101 set, the M101 with all the variations, which are pretty cool, but they're not as nice as the Gaudis. As you can see, the number 53 down here at PSA 9 sold at Memory Lane in June 2021 here for $4.2 million. That was the Dr. Newman collection, I believe. Yeah, that came from there. And there's the M101 Sporting News 1.7. So yeah, it's an interesting situation.
I like color too. I mean, I know there's red on that the Baltimore one, but like, I don't know. I like the full color, the vibrant color, and everyone's got to make their own decisions when you get way back into the pre-war stuff.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to some comments here, Joe, because we got a bunch. First of all, for the game, says Paul Masheri here, Probstein leaving eBay is great for the hobby. Maybe, yeah. I mean, well, we'll see what happens. It's interesting because his new platform, it's going to come under scrutiny, I think, by a lot of people, but it might be a legitimate alternative. Time will tell. Bob Boozle says the Babe Ruth ain't a hot potato. No, it doesn't move enough. Mookie says, I wonder how much the big Ruth drop is related to collectors kneecapping the SGC brand. I don't think it does personally, but I guess you never know. Bobby Burrell says it was hyped as a rookie card when it really is a schedule. Yeah, like that's, to me, it's not even a card. Like, and I think it's butt ugly. So, but I'm with Bobby. I don't even think it's I mean, a lot of things like stickers aren't cards either. Booklets aren't cards. they are, but they aren't. Like all these things, we kind of just allow them into the domain of cards. But I'm with Bobby on that. Actually, I agree. Found treasures. What's going on? E105 says Heritage could have placed a house bid to protect the consignor. Yeah, Heritage does have in their terms and condition the ability to place house bids on behalf of the consignor to protect the card. And maybe they did, 105. Maybe they did. Maybe the seller was willing to take, $4 million or more. So you never know. We don't know that, but we don't know what the seller's bottom line was. Maybe the seller's worth $200 million and doesn't care about losing a couple million over a few years. Tony says Heritage didn't really market it much. They really turned on the PR for the signed Gowdy, Ruth, and Gehrig, however. Called shot. I was surprised there was no reserve on the Ruth card in the auction. Well, I forget if there could be, like, you have to also remember, guys, not all reserves are noted in auction listings. Sometimes there are behind the scene invisible reserves that only the auction house knows about. And I think that comes down to terms and conditions and which auction houses are willing to do that. And I don't know if Heritage does or doesn't. I don't remember. And I have looked at it recently. Skeppy says, was the recent sale an auction? I believe so. Stale Prod, not a fan of vintage since I have no connection to those athletes who here actually seen those guys play. And Dan the Cardman says, if the person who won it was also the underbidder on the $7 million sale, they'd be cheering right now. Absolutely. That point definitely makes sense for sure. Dan goes on to say, this is the card sale you show the wife. Look, I got it for $3 million less. Am I out of the doghouse now? Yeah, right on. Chris says, shill bids going on with Ohtani cards, I bet. Yeah, I mean, I think, and we're going to talk about shilling right away here. We'll see. We might do it right away. We might do it with Leighton, maybe after. But in any event, I just feel like when it comes to shill bidding, obviously don't condone it. It's just, it's wrong. Don't do it. There's no excuse. All those things that we all believe. But I think we all also believe and realize that it's out there, and it's out there and it's all over the place. And, if you are that concerned about being shilled, you basically can't buy cards on public auction platforms, any of them really, because it's so easy to shill bid for somebody. It's so easy to do it and not get caught. And it's also apparently easy to do it and get caught, but it's easy to do it and not get caught. Because like I've said a million times, you just call your friend, call your sibling, call your parent. I'm not trying to give away tips here, guys, but we have to understand that it's a part of the landscape that this hobby operates within and that we operate within. And so for me, how do I sleep at night knowing that I've bought cards that have been shill bid? I've definitely been shilled. If you've bought more than a half a dozen cards at auction, you've likely been involved in an auction where the owner of the card has either bid on their own card or manipulated the bid somehow. I mean, obviously, I don't know what that threshold is. A 6? What's the average? I don't know. But I'm making up half a dozen. But how do I sleep at night, Joe? I just set the price I want to pay, and I pay that much. If there's protection bidding happening where the auction house is placing house bids on behalf of the consignor, well, then that's what I got to pay to get the card. I don't like it. But like my new Maurice Richard card, this one that I just showed earlier in the auction, bought this for like, I don't know, $400 or $500. Did I get shill bid? I don't know. Maybe I did. Like, that's what auction houses, the existence of auction houses allows for shill bidding. It just does. And even if you were to sell yourself, you could I don't know if there's any solution, Joe. My point, guys, is you just have to recognize it's happening. I don't think we're ever going to stop it. I don't think there's a way to stop it. Unfortunately, if there is, let me know. I'd love to absorb that into my domain of thinking, but I just don't see how it can ever be stopped. So if I want to continue buying cards publicly, I have to just accept and control what I'm spending. Joe, how do you, does it even enter your mind? How do you deal with it mentally, emotionally?
Well, it's been a journey. I mean, I had my fair share of suspicion aroused by auctions on Probstein and on the PWCC in the old eBay days, right? Where I would just go, wow, that was kind of strange that card just met the last comp, right? I mean, and it could be, but over time I kind of developed a proclivity for buy it now auctions because of it. And then more recently, when you really want something and it's on auction, you kind of, like you said, you got to just make your peace with the possibility and, get to your price and be okay losing it if don't get dragged into the emotion of the auction. So I think it is just something every collector and or, sports card enthusiast needs to kind of keep in mind. And, but I don't, I've kind of come back around to just incorporating it into the way I approach things, knowing that for whatever it's worth, it's probably not going to go away.
Yeah, that's a sad thing, but it's the reality. And, the way I used to explain it to myself was that these are silent reserves. Like a shill bid is literally somebody protecting. So they're protecting themselves, which is not, I'm not saying it's right, but that's the, I think some of the mentality behind it. So what you all have to recognize is that there is shill bidding that goes on where hobbyist consigns cards to public auction house, whichever one, whether it's, like a peer-to-peer, like an eBay, or through a formal auction house, like a Heritage or a Memory Lane or an REA or a Fanatics Collect, any of these that actually, hold the card themselves and then move it to their customer, the buyer. So those companies, and you have to look through their terms and conditions to see which ones actually allow for them to place house bids on behalf of the consigner. And it's very accepted in the overall world of auctions for that to happen. What I don't like about that is that those count as bids. So now you're a buyer and you're looking at the listing, Joe, and you see that this card's at $5,000 and there's 13 bids. Well, 6 of those could be your bids and 7 can be the house bidding for the consigner. So I'm going to be very cognizant of bidding at auction houses that allow house bids. And these house bids, by the way, their policies often read that they will only do it up to 1 bid increment below the reserve, whether it's public or a private reserve. And by that, whether it's known that the auction has a reserve on it, or they do not know, or the public does not know that there's a reserve on it. So that's one way. Go ahead, jump in.
I just want to say that this blows me away. I mean, you told me this just last week. I guess you were reading some auction sites or whatever, but I never knew this. This is news to me. This is all news to me. And it seems, I guess if it's in their, bylaws and rules and regulations, so be it. But it never occurred to me that any major auction house would be doing anything to kind of protect the value, unless it was reserve not met, which we see in some rare instances. Auction houses will have that, but for the most part, it feels like it's a free form way of bidding, and that really surprised me when you told me that.
Well, yeah, and you made the point that where it says reserve not met, yeah, it says that. Now you have to go dig deeper and say, can the auction house bid against me on behalf of the consigner? And yes, in almost all cases, not almost all, in many cases that you might be disappointed in learning about, they can and they do. So there's that. That is happening, guys. It's happening. So, and then you take another scenario where you just submit a card to whomever and you go place that bid yourself. So in the case at hand here, the Patrick Ryan situation that recently happened, everybody, if you don't know about it, we'll try and get you up to speed.
Get out under the rock.
Right. But within the Patrick Ryan situation, he placed a bid on his own item, when in essence, if he would have submitted that card to another auction house, they would have done it for him. But in this case, he did it himself. And like literally, that's what happened. And it's happening all over the place. So while we, the hobby, come down on shill bidding a lot when it comes to like selling cards on eBay or Fanatics Collect, we don't really hear about it when it comes to the Heritages or the REAs or the Memory Lanes or the Christie's or the, any of these bigger major auction houses in our hobby. We don't really hear about them there. But guys, it's happening there too. It's just being done by the auction house on behalf of the consignor, and the consignor says to them, hey, set my minimum sell price at $20,000, and the auction house places those bids for you. And they can place them at any time. They can place them at the beginning of the auction. They can place them the day before the auction ends or anywhere in between. And they can place them successively as they want to or in response to others. So they can even make it look like there's more action on a card than there is. And let me tell you, you won't be so happy when you see which auction houses are allowed to do this by way of their terms and conditions. Now, I've told more people than I've talked about. I'm working on some things in the background. I've made that comment several times on the show, and one of those projects I'm working on led me to looking at all these things. So it's not like I just all of a sudden looked at them. I did that with respect to a project I'm working on, which maybe I'll tell you more about tonight. We'll see. But we have Leighton in the back, and we have a bunch of comments that I'm seeing that I want to address. So I'm going to try and save some of those guys. I'm going to add, this is probably like anti-algorithm, but I'm going to say, try to save your comments to being really good ones for now, so that I can go back and find the good ones that I already want to come to. But let's bring on Leighton. Are you good to join us now? All right, let's bring on Leighton. Hello, Leighton Sheldon, and how are you?
Great. How are you guys doing?
Doing good, bud. Doing good.
Doing well, Leighton. Good to see you.
Nice to see you, Joe.
So we were just talking. First of all, the first thing I want to talk about with you, Leighton, is the Babe Ruth Baltimore News 1914, the schedule that just sold for $4 million after selling for $7.2 in December of 2023, just under 2 years ago. And do you have any thoughts or insights or opinions on what happened, why that card sold for $3 million less than it did last time?
Listen, I don't want to waste the viewers' time. It's all like we're just guessing, right? No, I don't have any insight. I would say this, for whatever it's worth, and I do love that card, but I've had a few people talk about cards in this way, and I think it might apply here. When you show someone a card, I don't care if it's vintage or modern, it really doesn't matter the era. When you have to start explaining something, it's generally not great.
Right.
And for whatever it's worth, I said to myself before this auction, the Heritage auction that just ended with the Ruth, like, I'm not talking about desirability, right, or anything like that, but just what do I think is maybe a little bit safer? And I do think the Ruth's a great card. But if you said to me right now, would I rather have a $4 million Wagner or a $4 million Ruth, the Baltimore News, even though the Baltimore News is rarer, some people with means are like, what do you mean it's a schedule card? And I'm not saying that's good or bad. If there's just explanation. And, you don't generally have to explain the Mona Lisa. You don't generally have to explain the Honus Wagner, even though there's, kind of rhetoric and story and urban myth behind both of those. And to be fair, a little bit behind the Ruth as well. And so I'm not sure if that played into it, Jeremy. I don't have any insight. I certainly found it fascinating. You're not talking about a few dollars less. You're talking about a substantial amount of money less. And for whatever that's worth, we all, as a collective community, right, should take notice of that. And Babe Ruth is one of the biggest names. It's one of the best cards. And yet it didn't appreciate. And there's a lot of reasons why I think it didn't, right? It sold too soon and blah, blah, blah. We can go, into all that and take the rest of the show, but I don't want to do that. So
there it is in all of its plain glory right there. Yeah, I'm not a fan of it, Leighton. And Bobby Burrell says the Ruth also says compliments of on the back, so it's a handout. My understanding, it was inserted inside of the newspaper. It was literally a flyer, an insert in the newspaper, so that people could have the schedule. So yeah, okay. Well, thanks for your thoughts, at least, Leighton. But your vintage expertise, I thought would be good to add. But I'm glad that you're also not sitting here speculating on what it might be. Hey, we have a bit of an announcement to make, you and me, that the next episode of Vintage Spotlight is actually in production, guys.
We got it on the calendar. Very excited.
We got it on the calendar. We got another episode.
We had our agents. They were kind of butting heads. So what Jeremy and I did was we fired our agents for Vintage Spotlight, and now we're dealing with each other direct. It's a lot easier.
So much easier to get a deal done. It's been several months since we did an episode. We will be recording it on Monday or Tuesday next week, and it will hit the airwaves next week as well. So yeah. Joe, have you listened to the Vintage Spotlight episode? If you can remember them, they're so long ago.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I just wanted to respond to one thing that just kind of brought to mind with what Leighton was saying with regards to the Ruth. Our friend Greg at Midlife Sports Cards asked a question about where you most lean, iconic, rarity, or nostalgia. And I think one of the things that Ruth may not have going for it is that iconic status, in the same ways that like a Mona Lisa or the Wagner in terms of the T206 have behind it. And that's kind of what I was trying to express a little bit, is just, it's not a card that captured my imagination at a younger age or any age really. So it's interesting to learn even just now, like some of its background, if it was, hand cut or put in a newspaper. But anyway, onward, forward. I do like that conversation. I'm sure we'll be talking about that again at some point.
I'm sure we will. Okay, let's go back to the Shill bid situation. And Leighton, as you came in, I was kind of mentioning how auction houses are very often allowed to, by way of their terms and conditions, place house bids. And I use that term house bids very loosely because to me they are still shill bids. If you're not gonna, like, to me they are shill bids on behalf of the consignor, but the auction world has a very nice way of wording it, a house bid. And it seems to make what is otherwise a shill bid sound okay, more palatable to the hobby. But that's really, in my mind, what it is. What do you think, Leighton? Like, yeah, what are you up to speed on the situation with P. Ryan and him outing himself, placing a bid on a card that was listed through Acquire, which is a third-party seller, or maybe a fourth-party seller to the third-party seller being Fanatics Collect. So you got a fourth party listing on a third party, and then you've got the first party being the seller placing a bid either deliberately or unintentionally on their own item, whatever you choose to believe when it comes to Patrick Ryan. And and kind of listen, we can sit here and bash Patrick Ryan all we want. We can sit here and talk about shill bidding all night long, but I think there's something more interesting going on here. And I don't want to just sit here and bash the guy. I mean, like, that's not going to be very productive for us. And this is not the platform in the hobby content where we come and just pile on to people over. There's enough places you guys can go and see that. And some people are doing a great job at that, and you can go see it there. Here, we're going to try and be a little bit more constructive and try to understand, how the environment maybe encourages that, or not encourages, but it makes people want to do it more, but also explain other things going on that we might be overlooking. And I would love to say solutions as well. I just don't know that there are any solutions. So Leighton, that's a bit of context. What's going through your mind?
I mean, a lot. A lot. The first thing I want to say is that, and this is directly pertaining to me, and to be fair, I think others like me, whether it be you're a dealer, because that's what I do for a living, right? That's how I put food on my table. So I feed my son, but also for collectors. And what I'm getting to, and I think you can sense it in my voice, I'm just upset in general because I don't think you understand. I'm paying 80 to 85, 80 to 87.5% regularly for cards that are good, not for commons, but for graded good vintage cards. And what happens when there's outliers or there's false data, it's really screwing up my business. Yeah. And so I'm just telling you, like, you're asking me what's coming, more not so from here, but from here, and I guess a little bit up here. I really just wish it didn't exist at all, obviously. And I'm sure almost everyone who's watching, both now and in the future watching this episode, I couldn't imagine, Jeremy, anyone who's sitting on the sideline, including Patrick or anyone else, is like, I really wish this existed more. No one's doing that. I mean, that's not good for anyone. And so that's really where I wanted to start. It really F's up my business because there is Card Ladder, there is VCP, there's 130 Point, there's eBay Completed, and God knows there's all sorts of other places where they're trying to hold on to this data. But if the data is not accurate, it's not worth you know what. And so you can tell I'm fired up just from the sense of I just want to let everyone know to be careful. And if I said nothing else the rest of the evening, that's where I would stop. Because Jeremy, let's be clear, we're not going to solve this tonight. You're not going to be coming up with some sort of solution. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but there's not going to be a solution that's going to work for everyone. So this is the point. Be familiar, be open-minded, be aware. Don't be hesitant to reach out to Jeremy, myself, or others that are in this community and say something looks weird, not because you're trying to call anyone out, because you don't want to take your hard-earned money and you don't want to waste it. And to me, that's really where I'm coming from. Not just from the dealer standpoint of making money, but there's got to be terrible as a collector. Can you imagine saving for 7 months for a card, whatever that card is in your budget, and you found out that people manipulated you all the way? I mean, I would just be disgusted. So that's kind of where I'm at with everything, whether it be it's an auction house, an individual, it's anyone in between. It's really upsetting.
It's very, very upsetting. I agree. Now, I want to thank you for that, Leighton. And what I want to really thank you for is you brought you brought a perspective that I don't think everybody's thinking about. Some people probably are, but it's messing up your business because you and so many people, when you're a dealer for a living, you are comps are a part of it's the comp economy. You are dealing within the comp economy because that's all there really is. And the comp set is so small relative to all the sales that are going on. Anyway, the amount of transactions that happen, a very small portion are actually captured by Card Ladder and other secondary or comp aggregators. And why do I say that? Because you've got card show deals, LCS deals, private deals on all the social media platforms, and more that are just not ever captured anywhere because they're like that, and they're the invisible comps that are out there. So it's guys like you and anybody who set up a card show or wherever buying cards is up against the comp. And if the comps aren't reflecting reality, or I say in quotes, true market value, well, then you're getting caught there. However, I think part of the saving grace for you there, Leighton, is that everybody else is seeing the same comp, so they're going to buy based on that as well. But that's so the whole industry is overinflated from that perspective.
I do want to interject one thing, just because it touched the nerve. I don't necessarily agree that everyone, yes, we're all using these same comps. And when I go to sell, that's the problem, Jeremy. The person who's buying and laying out a lot of money, we're going to be left holding the bag. Because I'm telling you, we have spreadsheets and I have numbers and all of this. And you're going to go back, and I'm not going to look up a card that sells for $73, but it sells for $7,300. You bet your bottom dollar we're going to double check. And so that's what I'm talking about. The real manipulation, if I'm going to be letting something go at auction, or let's say I have it at a fixed price for a certain duration, and my inventory management system says after 90 days or 120 days, we're going to take now an alternative look at the pricing and start reducing or auction, etc. What I'm saying is I don't hang on to cards forever unless they're my PC. That's different. But in terms of inventory, I don't necessarily agree, because what happens is if you just cast it off into space, all of a sudden now I'm an anomaly, but I'm an outlier. I'm a low price. It's a real price, but it's no good for me. I've just taken a bath.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I absolutely. It's a really this whole industry, the whole hobby is based. It's all based on a lot of sham prices, unfortunately. And Patrick Ryan is not the only person who's ever bid on his own items. Again, whether it's deliberate or unintentionally, only he truly knows. But it's a sad situation, and that's why it's so important to just find the amount that you're willing to spend and bid up to that amount, and you have to be comfortable with that. Because Leighton, Joe, I don't know if there's any solutions to this. Like you said, Leighton, you'd like it to go away. I don't think it's going to go away. Now, I'd like both of you to potentially respond to that. But before I do, I saw a comment here by Mookie Chilson that I can verify is not true, Mookie, and I'm going to share it. Mookie says CIA auctions and REA don't let the house bid. Blue Jacket 66 has a great fine print primer on auction house rules. Well, I can tell you that REA now allows it. And I'll read you what I have on REA. Reserves are used and may be added or disclosed up to roughly 24 hours before the close of initial bidding. So reserves can be added or disclosed up to 24 hours before the close of initial bidding, meaning like in the last day. Reserve amounts are confidential. House bidding is permitted up to one bid increment below the reserve. Employee and Shill bidding are strictly prohibited, and that is from their new terms and conditions. But CIA auction, which is collector investor auctions, which is Jeremy Donson and Chris Sewell, what I have on them says reserve existence is disclosed on individual lots where applicable. Reserve amounts are confidential. No house bidding, employee bidding specifically not addressed, except that employees are not permitted to bid on their own consigned lots. Explicit prohibition on direct or indirect bidding on items you have consigned. So they've taken it. You'd be surprised. There are some auction companies out there that don't even have a no shill bidding policy. And I think it's honestly, I think it's just an oversight. I don't think they're encouraging it. I think it's just like an oversight that they don't have that. But yeah, it's the Wild West out there, guys. And I think the lesson to take away, and in a way, it's almost like, it's almost, I say this tongue in cheek, but like, thank you, Patrick Ryan, for bringing this to our attention and putting it to under the spotlight, because I'm learning things, and I learned that for other reasons, but I think we're bringing it and educating people about it now that they didn't really maybe know about before. So yeah, it's a crappy situation for sure. Anything either of you want to say about it?
Yes, I just want to jump in quickly to make people feel a little bit better, because I know this firsthand as I deal with a lot of the data, on the front lines of buying and selling. I don't want to misquote you, Jeremy, but I think you said maybe a lot of the data is a sham. I don't agree with that. I actually think most of the data is okay, especially the more actively traded the card is. Yeah. The problem comes, and make no mistake, Jeremy, you know this, I'm not a modern guy, so I'm not dealing in the one of ones, the one of fives. And I can imagine in that world, data could be a substantial problem. But in vintage, this is my point. If you look at a Clemente rookie and you're looking at a 7, and all the 7s are trading at X or X plus a little bit, etc., and all of a sudden there's an outlier, it's not necessarily a sham or a shill. It could be an exceptional example for the grade. And so it's a little bit more nuanced depending on what genre of card you're dealing with. And I did want to comment on that because I think it's important for everyone who might be watching this both now but also in the future.
No, thank you for reeling me back in. I don't want to overblow it. I think you're right, Leighton. I think you're right. I think you're right. The majority of the data is probably good, and especially on the more highly traded, the more liquid, the more commodity type cards. I think you can rely on them for sure, whether it's a vintage or a modern. I mean, we got commodity cards in both eras, so, and ultra modern especially. So yeah, no, thanks for reeling that back in. I appreciate that, because I agree with you, absolutely. I just see a comment bothering me here, and sometimes I do ignore comment, but this one here from ANW Collectibles says, and now we're back to thanking Patrick Ryan for doing this. I don't know if you heard me, but I said tongue in cheek. So like, this is the kind of comment that is just like F off, buddy. Seriously. Like that's just you're an idiot for saying that is what I say. You're an idiot, not for saying that. You're just an idiot. Okay. Those are my thoughts on that person right now. We got lots of comments here, guys. Do you want to go through some at this time, or Joe, do you have anything going through? Joe's just having dinner right now. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
I mean, just Leighton actually reminded me that I did win a very nice 1950 Bowman Ted Williams at I guess it was the Weekly Fanatics the last weekend, and it was probably double comps. It was a PSA 4, but it was an exceptional 4, and so I think I paid over $1,400 for it, and that card could be somewhere in the $7 to $8.59 range. And but you saw it, Jay Lee. You actually mentioned it on your show with the Weekly, and it had the 5% superior eye appeal, and I'm thrilled with it. So yeah, there are, some of the data can be explained by exceptional eye appeal.
Absolutely.
Congrats on a beauty, man. Sounds like a nice card. Got good taste.
Thank you. Well, yep.
It is beautiful. I was thinking about bidding on it myself. The problem is I like the 51s better than the 50s because you get the name bar, a bit more card. But that card made me think maybe I'll just actually go with the 1950 for the Ted Williams instead of the 51. I didn't. And then Joe's like, you'll never guess what I bought. And yeah, that was not a card that I was expecting. So,
Well,
yeah.
I mean, and then of course, you know me, I'm very much after the fact. I question everything I do, and I go back and reflect. And I started looking at PSA 7s, and you know, notwithstanding some soft corners, the 4 looked better because so many of those 7s, 6s, 7s are, you know, just a little bit off center and don't quite, especially on a smaller card like that, it's more obvious. So anyway, I'm quite happy with it.
Well, dude, no, you should be more than quite happy. It's a gorgeous card. I love it. When you're ready to let it go, let me know. Leighton, you let me know that you had an interesting interaction with a seller yesterday. Why don't you tell us that story?
Oh, it's fascinating to me. Sure. The gentleman, you know, collector more so, that I have done business with before several years ago, hit me up and was like, I want to take a ride out to your store. Sends me a list of some graded cards. Maybe it's worth like, you know, call it 5 to 10 grand. Nothing amazing, but some solid cards on there. He's more of a basketball guy. He's got some cool memorabilia, which I'll tell you about in a minute. And we're doing the numbers, and I'm like, so, you know, like, what do you want to sell it for? Here's my offer. He's like, I don't really want to sell it. I'm like, so why did you drive out here? He's like, no, I want to trade. And I'm thinking he's like kidding me, pulling my leg. Joe, I'm not kidding. He sat in my office for hours. He was like a kid in a candy store. He basically took this big credit, right? We went through his graded cards. And to be clear, this is how I did it. I said, this is what I would pay in cash. So let's just call it as about 80%. And I actually said to him, I'd rather just pay you for these cards. He goes, but I don't want to sell them. I said, okay. And then I said, well, what do you want to trade for? This is where it got fun. Really appreciate it. He goes, you know, I'm probably not going to have the money in the future, at least that I know of, to be getting a Jackie Robinson card, to be getting a Satchel Paige, to be getting. And so that's what he did. He kind of had this very short list of players that he wanted to get, call it a type card, you know, for. And we went through his collection, and I told him what I would buy it for. I reiterated 11 times from Sunday. I was happy to buy it instead of trading. And I actually felt bad because I'm like, you know, I'm on the phone. I'm doing work all day. He was literally sitting in our front office, perusing the store, perusing the eBay online store, and just, you know, every now and then taking a call from work. But ultimately, we worked out, call it like a 5-figure plus trade. And he didn't take any money at all. He wouldn't take any money. And it was fascinating because, you know, there was like a LeBron rookie in the graded cards. There was a Kobe Chrome 96 and a 9. These are solid cards. You know, some certainly cheaper cards. And in the end, he got a 49 Bowman Jackie from me, a 61 Fleer Wilt. And this is what I did, guys. I'm looking at the trade, and even though it was fair, I go, can I give you like a Hank Aaron and a Willie Mays? I felt like a little kid. Instead of giving you my Jackie and this Wilt. And he's like, no. So, you know, I figured on the house, meaning the store, the shop, etc. So I'll still do the deal. The numbers were fair. And I'll show it off on social, I guess, early next week. But this is what's crazy. So we had 2 pieces of memorabilia. They're both basketball related. And I think the product, Jeremy, was called Upper Deck, like Behind the Glass, maybe?
Yeah. I've seen
Right?
that.
I think something like that. And this guy won a Larry Bird signed jersey, okay, from Upper Deck. This is insane. I have all the paperwork. He has a letter from Upper Deck apologizing. So he gets the Larry Bird item sent to him, but it's not a jersey. It's a photo. Okay. And at the time, he's pissed. He's like, I just want my jersey. They're like, yeah, we don't have any more. So they're like, we'll send you a replacement gift. You ready for this? I haven't shown it to anyone yet other than the office. The replacement gift It might be larger than a 16 by 20, but I'll conservatively call it a 16 by 20. It's an unbelievable image of MJ against Kobe, signed by both. I think it's like numbered to 20 or 200. I don't remember exactly. It's a very low number. And he not only has the paperwork for that, he literally has a letter from Upper Deck apologizing for the error. And here is the gift in lieu of the Larry Bird jersey. Yeah. So I'm excited because I collect Michael, I collect Kobe, and you can imagine that was part of the big trade that we pulled off. So I sent out a bunch of vintage card greats, but to get an amazing piece of memorabilia with actually just a super cool backstory to it as well. And that was what happened in the shop to close the week, Jeremy.
That's neat, man. I liked the guy didn't want to take any money, just wanted to come in and just make a trade and have some fun that way. That's a cool story. Thanks for sharing, Joe. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I just really look forward to seeing it. An MJ Kobe, real-time auto that just sounds fantastic. Upper Deck authenticated. Really look forward to seeing it.
Yeah, totally. Very neat. Very neat. Okay, let's go to a few comments, guys. We got lots, and I haven't been able to see a ton of them because there's been lots of good chatter here so far tonight. But Bob Boothel says, collect news alert. Jeremy Lee ridicules appearance of rare Babe Ruth schedule. Yeah, and I was actually just looking at Instagram comments. Darren Ravel was on Instagram, and he said the card didn't exist until 1985. It's a newspaper schedule card. Might not even be a real card. I think we were kind of saying that too. So that makes sense to me. Josh says $4 million is a lot for a card. Cards don't always go up, and that's what people do forget. They do go up and down in value. So there's that. Chris here says the Jordan. He's talking about the Jordan Kobe dual logo, man. He says, I bet that was shilled for $13 million. Well, what some people were speculating on that was that it was shilled by the guys who ended up buying, by the syndicate, that they had it shilled so they could get the headline for the world record price on a public auction, on a card at public auction. Don't know. That's just what I'd heard people speculate on. Michael Rader, happy to be here. Better late than never. What's up, Michael? Good to see you. Lonely Basement says, I shill bid against myself. That's still shill bidding, buddy. I know you're just kidding, but be careful. Bobby Burrell says, Ruth also says compliments of. Yes, it was given out for free. A&W, who already pissed me off once, says, but when you get caught shilling, the hammer should come down on the hobby, shouldn't defend, and the hobby shouldn't defend said perpetrator and issue him a pass. Yeah, that I agree with A&W. Yeah, no passes. You shill bid. Yeah. Midlife says, I just assume everything is shilled. Part of where we are. I think that's an over assumption, but I get where Greg is coming from. This is just a way to protect yourself as a hobbyist, almost mentally, psychologically, because it's possible that what you are bidding on is being shilled. Bringing the Heat says, put a reserve bid then. I think what he's saying is put a reserve on the auction, not a reserve bid, but put a reserve on the auction, which is that is the solution. That is the solution. You don't have to shill bid, but the problem with reserve auctions is that people don't bid on them because they like starting off at a low value. They want to start off like 99-cent bids, get more bids. It shows more action. You put in a reserve, well, you might not get a single bid, and bidders thrive on competition. They want to see the action happening. It's more enticing to bid on something when other people are interested in it too. Problem is, though, guys, that's happening anyway. People are putting in these blind reserves, these confidential reserves, and the auction house is bidding against you anyway. You just don't know that it's the auction house bidding on behalf of the consignor. So, if we're going to, let me rephrase. Our stance that we as a hobby have on shill bidders, why don't we apply that to auction houses that allow house bidding? I'm asking the question. Maybe we need to evaluate the whole landscape. And I work with auction houses. That's what I do. I promote auction houses. I do auction ending watch parties. I do auction showcase episodes. I shine lights on cards for auction houses. That's part of what I do for a living. So who knows? I might be talking myself out of some clients here, but that's fine. I will put my authenticity and transparency ahead of that because it's just what I'm going to do. Bringing the Heat says, There is no unwritten rules or anything shameful in the hobby anymore. It's funny how this new group of collectors since the pandemic don't care about any conflicts of interest, shilling, or doctoring. I'm at least bringing the heat is like limiting this to people who have come in since the pandemic. Because I know that myself and a lot of other people who've been in this hobby a while, we do care about conflicts of interest, shilling, and doctoring. Southern Tony, the question is, what would the Kobe Jordan dual logo man have actually been sold for without the shill bid? If it was shill bid, I mean, that's speculation, but what would it have been? We'll never know. We'll never know. Greg says, Jeremy, since you bought, oh yeah, I didn't even think about this. I bought Patrick Ryan's Joe Jackson at auction through Fanatics Collect. The only thing I know there, so Greg says, do you think he bid you up? I don't know. It's possible. It's possible he did. But the reason why I would lean to potentially no is because of because when you're bidding, like he sold cards on he sold cards on Fanatics. This is my understanding. The card he shill bid on the other day, whenever that happened, was a card that was selling through a fourth party, being Acquire. So he was able to put a bid in. If you are selling a card yourself on Fanatics Collect, you cannot bid. You can attempt to bid, I think, and the system will say you are not eligible to bid. So I won that on Fanatics Collect before he went and used Acquire. So I believe that he directly consigned the Joe Jackson, in which case, if he only has one account, if he has multiple accounts, then he easily could have. But if he only has one account, then I don't think that he was able to actually bid me up, Greg. But great question and something to consider. But I didn't even think of that. And then A&W responds to me, says, I'm an idiot. Well, yeah, you are. Brushing off a hobby friend's action. So you're now assuming that he's my hobby friend. Okay. Even if tongue-in-cheek shouldn't happen. Well, who said I brushed? So two things. Number one, you're saying I brushed it off. And number two, you're saying that we're friends. You say his actions shouldn't be joked about. That's you saying. So why I'm seeing jokes about it all over the place. Shouldn't be brushed under the rug or be moved on from so easily. It was on the thumbnail of this show, A&W Collectible. So you are a complete moron, is what you are. Thank you for letting me know that so clearly. I do appreciate that. And we should consider banning you altogether from commenting on this show because you bring nothing to the table, A&W Collectibles. All right. I don't have any more comments. There's tons here. What's on your mind, guys? Let me go to you guys for now. Let me go back to you guys for now. I just went through a few things there. Leighton, what are you thinking? And sorry, while you're speaking, I'm just gonna look at the comments and find some other stuff, okay?
Yeah. Listen, I'm thinking buyer beware. Be careful out there. I think that there is a lot of good people. There's a lot of good data. And, as far as the landscape, listen, it's complicated. Don't do anything you're going to be uncomfortable with. And, as far as the reserves and such, I do think it's a really good thing to use or utilize if you're going to be putting something in an auction and you're unsure about, the final price. Listen, I work with REA closely. They're in New Jersey. And I can tell you guys that I think I've only used the reserve maybe like once or twice in all the business I've given them through the years. And it's just because, they have a pretty robust marketplace. But it's like the same thing with Heritage. I think that I've given them a ton of stuff as well as a myriad of other auction houses. What I'm saying is like I use the reserve when I feel like an item is maybe not as liquid as I'd like, or I don't know what the price is potentially going to fall between. And then if the auction house wants it, I'll explain, hey, this is kind of like, I'm a little bit uncomfortable. And unless they can make me feel comfortable, I'll ask for a reserve. And oftentimes they won't actually take the item because the reserve is either not accepted by that auction house or they don't agree with the reserve price. So, there's a lot of other places, Facebook, right, Net54, card shows to go direct with folks. So we don't have to feel like you always have to rely on the auction houses, but I do understand why we all do, because really in any given week, there's just an incredible amount of material that's supposedly going to find a new home. And I think us as collectors find that very exciting.
Well said. Well said. Appreciate those comments, even though I heard about 70% of it as I was scouring the comments. Joe, any thoughts from you?
No, I think like everyone's saying, we've unfortunately had to sort of integrate this into our hobby experience in some way or another. And I do, Adam Gray mentioned how the lower and lower fees could potentially exacerbate this issue, in so much as people aren't actually out of pocket so much if they are figuring out a way to do shady dealings and get bids in. But I'd like to think that the auction house folks are putting their heads together to consider how this could be mitigated, if not uprooted. I know we keep saying it's impossible to do, but in an age where we have so much technology, maybe it's just the sweet spot of fees. Maybe there's a way to redistribute things in such a way where the incentive is mitigated, but doesn't come out of the honest sellers. And of course, auction houses, have employees and have rent to pay. So it's an interesting time. Also, just, we mentioned Probstein leaving eBay. I think that's a really interesting development. As someone that's been on eBay since 2002, I am fascinated to see if that will exert any pressure on eBay to innovate, or in that, specifically in the category of sports trading cards. And it'll be interesting to see if Probstein's success is sort of replicated in a off eBay site, and if eBay in any way responds. I know, Leighton, you mentioned that you have an eBay store. I don't know if you have any, pet peeves about how eBay does things, or where we are with the authenticity. I mean, everyone's talking about the lag time. I've got a few cards at Santa Ana. It does slow things down, but there's real benefits to it as well. I'm not entirely angry about it. But do you have any thoughts about eBay these days, Leighton, in terms of their service and what they're offering you as a seller?
I'll just take the one that you finished up with, Joe. I hate the eBay authenticity program. It's horrendous. Okay. Because literally, this is what happens. I already have an item that I know is good. I've potentially even graded it myself. I've sold said item. The person who's bought it from me, all they want, Joe, is the item. Then they contact me when they're going through the tracking, and they say, "What do you mean? Why is it taking so long?" And I'm thinking, did you read? I'm not agreeing with this, but did you read the tracking? Like, I don't have the item. Yeah, but how long do you think it's going to take? I'm sorry. Did you not really quite get? I don't have the item. I'm trying to help you the best I can. If I knew where to go, I literally would fly there right now. Believe me, because I think I can help a lot of people. But the point is, it's really slowing down the time from which someone decides to quote unquote buy it, and when they actually get it. I've never seen craziness like this going on. If it's an ungraded card, sure. But you're talking about a graded certified card that now has the pop report, the certification number, and all that jazz in the listing. And we're telling people, I need to doubly look at your graded card before you can safely receive it. As you can tell, Joe, I'm kind of at the end of my road with that program.
Yeah, I hear you. In fact, I came out of the gates right where you are, and I've actually just kind of reached it's like the 5 cycles of grief or something. maybe I've just made peace with it. The one thing I will say, and it's not that it ever really happened to me that much, notwithstanding, whether a PSA slab card that we look at the certification number and the pop report and go, oh yeah, that's a real card and it's in a real case and it's all good. But just the fact that it gets to a third party and that can verify, yes, this card is now in our possession, and therefore, the return stuff, I mean, depending on your policies, at least that's mitigated. And as a buyer, I feel a little bit of protection there, even though it's molasses slow. I feel a little protection that I know it's going somewhere who is going to verify it. I'm not going to open up the package and have a rock in it, right? Not that that ever really happened. I mean, shockingly, you know, knock on wood, eBay's been really good to me. I think I've lost one package in 20 years that, you know, ended up with a net loss of about $120. So I've been very lucky in that regard, but that's at least some security, but they gotta speed it up because it is slowing things down. And I think it will, I can't imagine it's not going to ultimately just have people turning away from eBay.
That was great, guys. You allowed me to cover and catch up on comments and see what's going on in there. Everyone's having a lot of fun in there, guys. I'm glad to see it. Very glad to see it. There was one comment here. Chris here says, but graded cards shouldn't take 7 days to authenticate, which is I agree with that. But the problem with that, and Inspired Sports Card says it here, there are some fake slabs out there, though, as we know. Kind of responding to what Leighton said.
Agreed.
It's true. I mean, there are fake slabs out there. So, yeah, what do you think of that, Leighton?
No, I mean, listen, Inspired Sports Card makes a great point, and I'm not suggesting that there's not some value. But listen, I'm a businessman. So what I'm explaining to you is I know the product that I'm dealing with. I have a high degree of certainty and confidence in it. So what's happening is you understand turnover. It's taking my turnover ability. Like, there's people that will not buy another card from me until they get the card before. So in some cases, it's literally taking 2, 3, 4 weeks additional. So it's just crushing the ability to really focus on turnover. Now, thankfully, the industry is extremely strong right now. So there's no problems. And to be honest, I wouldn't have brought this up tonight. But you brought it up. You know, I wanted to give you my gut. And I'm telling you, this is not just from a seller, though, Joe. As a buyer, I hate it. And to be fair, right, like maybe I know the 17 points of contact on the PSA case to look for the security measures. And I'll be honest, I don't know if there's 17, but there's several. And so to get back to Inspired, though, I do agree. I think that there's collectors and there's more than just a handful, but absolutely do value that service. I'm just not one of them.
I like this comment from Splenda. He says the eBay authentication program should be optional. And I've kind of wondered about, like, why not?
Totally.
Right? Why isn't it optional? It should be.
If there's something that gets done from this, that would be amazing. Can someone hit eBay about 11,000 times with a tweet over the next week? Because, Jeremy, that's a huge problem solved. Like, you have the option to send to the vault. Why do you have to send it to the authenticator? I don't understand.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I would love to see it be optional. It hasn't bothered me personally. I guess I don't buy enough cards on eBay to have experienced the authentication. I think I've bought maybe 1 or 2 cards ever that have come in that eBay authentication sleeve. And for me, like, I don't really care how if it takes an extra week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks to get my cards. Like, I'm okay. I'm personally okay with it. I'm patient, but I'm also not needing to put it in inventory to flip it as soon as possible. If it's going to my collection, I'm okay to wait, and I can be patient that way. But I can understand why people want, you want to get your cards as soon as you can. I get that too, especially if you are in the business of reselling it, putting it in your store on display or your online store, wherever. I get that too, but I'm willing to be patient. Doesn't mean I like it. It doesn't bother me really. I know I'm in the minority on that one. So, okay, let's do some more comments here, guys. Bobby Burrell said comps are like a price guide. The keyword is guide. Yeah, I think so too. And the nuance there for me is that the guide you don't really have to be super skeptical about a price guide, or as skeptical as you do about comps. You have to be skeptical about comps, or at least run through a checklist of things that you might consider when you are really relying on a comp for your own decision making. E105 says, one thing is for sure, we won't see another Baltimore News Ruth sell for years, maybe decade or more, of either the red or blue, or of either back. And I think what he's saying, yeah, I mean, if they're on the decline, we might not see another for a while. If they're on the decline. Good evening to Jake at B-Ball Cards. What's up, buddy? Dan Brown says, why not name the auction houses? I think Dan is talking about what I said earlier, and it's just that I just don't remember them all. It's not about not naming them. I will, and I'm going to name all of them in one way or another shortly. So I'm definitely naming all the auction houses. Splenda says, what in the prattle nonsense is this guy talking about? Why aren't we allowed to be mean when people do dumb things? Like I said, people can be mean, but we're not going to sit here, and I'm not going to waste my guests on the screen time or my audience's time sitting here just piling on somebody. It's very easy to say. Patrick Ryan did something very stupid. He did something that is against our hobby etiquette. It is completely against what we accept as being reasonable and a way that we want our fellow hobbyists to behave in the hobby. Okay, I said it. How many times do I need to say it though? And again, it's not like we're letting him off the hook. None of that. No. Right on my thumbnail. I don't bash people and put faces on my thumbnails. I just don't do that. It's not my style. You can find that elsewhere, but here we're going to talk about the issue, and that's what we're going to do. We're not just going to sit here and pile on for 3 hours, even though we may be heading our way towards that. A&W, who is already on my shit list right now, says Jay Lee said no bashing P. Ryan. I just said don't waste our time. Like, go bash him on your Instagram. Go bash him. Go bash him all you want. I really don't care. I just don't want to spend, like, here we are spending time on it. Like, it's idiotic. Platforms with voices such as this are exactly what is needed to discourage, inform, and continue to pull the curtain back. We're doing that. I don't know if you're freaking blind, you dumbass. It can't fall out of the news cycle, and it won't. Don't worry, it won't. Foul Ball says Leighton seems like this is an idiotic comment. You don't come on here and disrespect the guests I have on the screen, at least while they're on the screen. That's unaccepted on Sports Cards Live. HC Exchange says Leighton is bang on. Southern Collector says I was the underbidder on the signed Gowdy Gehrig last night. It makes me wonder if it was Shill bid. Very easily could have been, Tony. And then you got to decide if you're willing to pay that price or not. But you weren't. You were the underbidder. So you tapped out where you wanted to tap out. Michael Rader says anyone who is a proven cheater and manipulates a card should be banned from all platforms for life. In casinos, they have a blacklist for cheaters. Yeah, I'm all for it. Splenda says, I am angry. Shill bidders should be excommunicated. Everyone should know I'm angry because I'm typing in all caps. Orlando says FOMO and Shilling took the 86 Fleer Jordan PSA 10 to 800K. Probstein bought 30 of them. Yes, he did, apparently. Dan Brown says, I want to ask Hoj, is an auction has an auction company, I think he makes it clearer here. I want to ask Hoj if an auction house has ever disclosed to Card Ladder that a house bid won the auction. It's impossible, Dan Brown. House bids don't win auctions. They end as the high bidder, but there's no sale, so there's no comp. There's no sale. They just get forgotten about, and then those items get relisted or returned to the seller. So I get what Dan Brown is asking here, but that just can't happen logistically. It'll never happen. They will never report that the auction house won its own auction, and it happens. Absolutely, it happens. Inspired says, do you guys buy most of your cards via auction house, buy it now, or fixed price? I'll go first, guys. For me, it's mostly by auction. Auction for me. Most of my cards are bought at auction. And maybe I got to reevaluate that. How about you, Joe? How do you buy most of your cards? Auction or buy it now? I'd
say 50-50 at this point. I definitely, try and find that threshold when, there's a best offer, OBO, I'll mess around. I'll communicate with the seller and see what they're thinking, try and be polite. But then there's also, the auctions where you just you zero in and hope for the best. So I'm 50-50.
How about you, Leighton? What do you have a preference?
I don't necessarily have a preference, whatever's easiest, I guess. But we buy a lot directly from collectors. We buy a lot of fresh collections. I do buy a lot from auction houses and from card shows. I just prefer it to be as easy as possible.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I think about is, like, sometimes I don't care where the card is or how it's listed. If it's a card that I want and it's not a card that is listed all regularly, I'll just go to where the card is and I'll either hit the buy it now, or I'll make an offer against the buy it now, or I will bid on the auction. So kind of going where the cards are, I would say there. But fun question, inspired. Thank you for that. Jeff's Card Journey asks a good question. He says, why would you use a consigner to sell with another consigner? So that's that. Why would you use a fourth party to sell with a third party? There's a good answer. At least I think there's a good answer to that, which is marketing. These guys market the cards for you on other platforms. They have a company like Acquire does that. A company like The Wharf does that. I mean, The Wharf and Acquire, I see their stuff all the time. And they actually put stories behind the cards, So those are some reasons that come to mind for me. Jeff's Card Journey as to why you would do that. And so, yeah, but that's really the only reason I can think of is that. Leighton, do you know any other reasons come to mind to you as to why you would use a fourth party to sell with a third party?
Other than what you just named, and maybe some white glove service or some other perks I can't think of, but I agree.
Okay. Joe, any insights in there? No? Yeah.
That makes sense.
Mike Rader says a real solution would be to not have auctions, buy it now or make offers only. Yeah, that would be a solution. But I think that would come close to putting eBay out of business. I think auctions are, I don't know about you guys, like even when I bought the Joe Jackson, Shill or not, I got caught up in a bidding war that night. I mean, it's a lot. You can go watch it. It's here on the channel. I got caught up in a bidding war and went higher than I intended to because it was an auction. The other thing is that buy it nows don't really inspire competition, and competition drives prices. And then it's really like who gets there first versus who's willing to pay the most. So I think auctions do generate better returns for sellers. So it's an interesting solution, but I don't know that it's at all practical. Unfortunately. Orlando says, most of my big cards I buy in person from shows or collectors. That's always a fun way to do it. Brad says, using a reserve is ethical because you are told there is a reserve. House bidding should be illegal, plain and simple. Ha ha ha. I just kind of snicker after what I've learned. And again, it is not illegal and it is happening all the time. Chris here says, but graded cards shouldn't take 7 days to authenticate. Fair. Also says it's great for buyers, not sellers. This is the eBay Authenticity Program. Great for buyers, not sellers. Do you agree with that comment, Leighton? Because I haven't used it as a seller ever, and maybe I've used it once or twice as a buyer or been forced to use it. Do you agree that it's great for buyers but not sellers?
No, I don't like it as a buyer. I like the best idea I heard about it was giving the option to the buyer if you'd like to have it quote unquote authenticated or just have it sent directly to you. That's what I would like.
Got it. Thank you. Bobby Burrell says, unfortunately, eBay intentions for certifying are great, but they chose the wrong way. So I agree. So therefore, I agree with Leighton. All right. Appreciate that, Bobby and everybody else. And there's probably another 100 comments that I just haven't been able to look at yet. So Leighton, how are you doing for time right now? You want to stick around for a bit? You're welcome to if you'd like. Ben Hossler just came in the back room, I see. We'll bring him on. We'll take a bit of an intermission and talk about football and what's going on in the world of football. And then once we're done with the Ben Hossler and the Rolling Insights information, and thank you to Rolling Insights for spying. By the way, I'm just going to bring Ben on right now for a sec, guys. So unless Leighton, you want to stick around because you're more than welcome to.
Thank you. I got to run in a minute or two, but I'll say hi to Ben. Absolutely.
Sure. All right, Ben, I'm going to bring you on. Guys, say hi to Ben. It's been a while since he's been on. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
Hey, Ben.
Doing good, man. Doing good. So I want to start by saying, first of all, and Leighton, I know you said hi, but give me 1 second. I want to start by saying, Ben, it's been awesome having you on here every couple weeks, once a month, whatever we've been doing. You bring a great presence. But this is the last time you'll be joining us as a regular on the show. I want to thank Rolling Insights for sponsoring Sports Cards Live for I don't know, we're coming up on 8-9 months probably. So I'm grateful for that, for their support. Great company, great guy. The owner of the company is actually local here in Calgary. I just saw him at a card show the other day, and that's his name is Steve. He's a wonderful guy. But we're going to be parting ways as partnering up here. But it's been wonderful getting to know you and Steve and having you guys. Don't forget about Rolling Insights as time goes by, everybody. But Ben, welcome back, and at the same time, goodbye.
No, I appreciate it. Appreciate all of you, Jeremy, obviously, for having me on. It's been great to get to know you, and great to know the chat. I'll still be a part of the community here, watching the streams every week. I've been a big fan, and I've become a big fan of the program, since I started coming on.
Appreciate that, buddy. Appreciate that. Leighton, anything you'd like to let people know? And I want to say, guys, follow Leighton on Instagram, Leighton_Sheldon, _collect. He's got the Trading Card Therapy podcast, which is a great podcast. It's on my rotation. Check it out. And then, of course, him and I do team up for the Vintage Spotlight podcast, which we haven't done an episode since like June, but we have one coming out late next week. So I'm excited about that. Should we let them, Leighton, should we give them a bit of a teaser on what the topic is? I'll leave that up to you if you want to let them know what the topic is. We may as well, right?
Yeah, you might as well. I mean, I think it's going to be a fun episode. I'm really looking forward to it.
Tell people what what the topic is, please.
Sure. Well, it all started off, I was in touch with someone who had acquired a 1933 Gaudi graded set, and they had offered me some of the key cards from the set. And it got me thinking, Joe, if you had the choice and the price was kind of similar, meaning for the balance of the set, like 1 through 239, or would you rather have the Lajoie? And, it kind of spurred this whole thought process in my head. And then from there, and I don't want to let, kind of the cat out of the bag, which is, you got to get them to tune in, Jeremy. But I learned something very interesting about the Nap Lajoie recently that I had never known before.
Yeah, that's going to be fun to get into that. And I feel like we're going to be revealing, well, you'll be revealing, I'll be along for the ride, co-hosting with you, but revealing some information that might be very new to many people in the hobby. It's going to be very educational, informative. So guys, check that out. But Leighton, thank you so much for joining us. Again, if you want to go. If you can stay, stick around. But you said you got to go. So
yeah, well, I appreciate you having me. Thanks so much, guys. It was good seeing everyone, and I'll see you real soon.
Okay, bud. Take care.
Take
care. And Joe, how about you? I mean, I know are you looking to stick around for a bit? You want to stay on for a while? I don't want to pressure you too, but I know you kind of sometimes want to also. I just want to be respectful of your time.
Well, I might go away and come back. I got 1 or 2 things I got to take care of, but I'm probably going to be around later. So maybe I can jump back on.
If you'd like. Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to bring, so in about half an hour, well, actually, I think Chris Hoge is going to join us in about 15 minutes. Josh Adams will join us about 15 minutes after that. And then the last hour will be what it usually is. So it's going to be a good time. We'll continue. I'm sure when Josh and Chris come on, we will have more talk about shill bidding, because I know that Chris is listening right now. Hi, Chris. And maybe Josh is too. And so we'll get some of their thoughts. And then, maybe we'll get into talking about a few other topics that have been under the microscope lately that we haven't yet talked about tonight. So it's going to get good. I think we're going to get some more passionate stuff in a little bit here. So
awesome.
All right, Joe.
Hope to pop back on.
Okay, sounds good. So it's going to be me and Ben for the next about 10 minutes. And then I'm expecting Chris Hoge to join us. So Ben, and by the way, chat, I'm still going to look through all the comments. I know there's some good stuff. I know some of you are really pissed off at me right now, and I'm pissed off at some of you, even A&W. Yes, you did strike a nerve with me. But I'm going to get over it. And maybe we could even just have a conversation and find common ground, because I don't like when I get like that, and it doesn't make me feel good. But at the same time, I don't like someone coming into this chat here on this YouTube channel and disrespecting me and calling into question my integrity or my transparency or any of that. So, because that's how I try to live my my sports cards live life and really anything else. So yeah, you did strike a nerve with me. I can't deny it. It's been obvious. All right, Ben, what's going on? First of all, Ben, what was the final score in the baseball game tonight?
Last I looked, it was 5-1 Dodgers. I think that is around what it finished at.
Did it end? So the game ended. So they tied up the series at 1-1.
Yeah.
5-1 final.
Yamamoto, first time since 2001, I believe, back-to-back complete games in the postseason for a starting pitcher.
Well, okay. Neato. What are your thoughts on the World Series? I know you're more a football guy, but are you a baseball guy too?
Oh, yeah. So for Rolling Insights, I cover football, baseball, and basketball, both NBA and college basketball. So love baseball.
And what do you think of the World Series so far? What do you have a speculation on what's going to happen at the end of, and now it's a best of 5?
Yeah. So Steve, obviously, which like the whole company that I work for, or I'm the only American employee. Everyone else is Canadian. So lots of Blue Jays fans that I have to interact with daily. I would root for them for my fellow coworkers. I think that the Blue Jays at the end of the day presented a tougher matchup for the Dodgers than the Mariners. I think with just how they approach, how they're able to put the ball in play. So I think it's going to be a good series. I was happy that the Blue Jays got one early so it doesn't get out of hand. We'll see what happens with it going to LA now, but I do think it's going to be a good next couple of games there.
Yeah, we will see. Now, the football season so far. Now, this is where I'm not an expert. You certainly are. What are some of your initial thoughts on well, it's not so initial. I mean, we're already almost September, October. We're 2 months into the season. What week are we going into tomorrow? Well, on Thursday and this weekend?
Yeah, this will be week 8.
Week 8. So almost the midway point, right? We're a 19-game regular season schedule now. What are your thoughts on what's going on? And you did, so guys, Ben did send me a data set here looking at quarterbacks. Would you like me to share that with the screen? And you can just kind of talk us through what's going on with quarterbacks and what some of your takeaways are?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's been fun, when I've come on here, whether we were talking about football, baseball, whatever, try to bring something different, each time. So I know previously when I've come on the streams and we've talked about football, it was kind of looking at younger quarterbacks and kind of their performance over their young careers in relation to their card prices. So for tonight, since we're 8 weeks in, I tried to look at a group of quarterbacks in which I thought were either overachieving general consensus coming into the season or underachieving. And I think kind of the common theme, you want me to share my screen, by the way?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead. I'll let you, then you can drive as well.
Yeah, let me do that. Let me make sure this is the right one. That is not the right one. Sorry, I put up the...
You can just put it in the same window and it'll actually I'll let you handle it because there's different ways to do it. And while Ben is doing this, guys, I'm reading through comments so I can bring them up later. And I'm getting a good chuckle out of many of them. So this is I got to tell you guys, I'm having a blast so far tonight. This is a lot of fun. So thank you everybody for being here in the chat. I like this one comment here from West 238 said, value of the Jeremy Lee Cracker Jack went up 20% tonight. Yeah. And A&W says, hiding from Jay Lee's wrath. A&W, don't hide from my wrath. Let's talk it out. Let's talk it out. Okay. I apologize. I do apologize for calling you names. But you did hit a nerve with me and my nerves get hit. Guys, I'm human. Obviously, my nerves can be hit. And but I'm going to try to do better myself so I don't respond like that. Okay. Back to you, Ben. Are you ready for a screen share?
Yeah. And I don't know if I've ever seen that side of you, Jeremy. I don't know. Not from my experience of coming on the streams. I don't think I have.
Yeah, I don't think I mean, some regular chatters, people in the chat have just said I've never seen him like this before. And listen, I take my authenticity very seriously, guys. I've showed it to some people. I have a sticky that literally sits in front of me all the time. It's like the mission of what I do. And here, I'll show it to you. To inspire, educate, and entertain with passion, authenticity, transparency, and experience. Experience is the newest ad. I realize, there's experience there too. But that's how I kind of, I try to be governed by this. I'm human. I'm infallible. We all are. I'm prone to making mistakes and saying stupid things. I did it tonight. Do I regret it? Yeah, I do regret it, guys. I regret something I've said 15 minutes ago. I'm human. So I'm not apologizing for being human, but I'm letting you know, and I'm calling myself out for it. Yeah, but that's why I did. I lost it because this is how I govern myself. It doesn't say I always behave perfectly well, but this is how I try to govern how I operate, and those are in front of me so I'm always reminded, and to the point where it's like hopefully ingrained. I don't need to look at it anymore, and I really don't look at it all the time, but it's here. I keep it, and so yeah, when somebody tells me that I've done something that I haven't done, it can bother me. And I thought that A&W's cards were calling me out for things I clearly didn't do, but that was how he perceived them. And that's where it's just a matter of communication and having that discussion. So, okay, Ben, should I share your screen now?
Yeah, go for it. And I would just say, you and I have been in the content game for a long time separately. You've built up a very good community. I think you've done very well for yourself, and you have so many people that watch these and listen to these because of, you. So I would say don't sweat it too much. It's okay. I'm sure the chat will understand.
I think they do too, but there's always a few, who like to see you squirm, and that's okay. See me squirm. You can see me squirm when I need to squirm. I'll squirm. Okay, I'm going to share your screen, guys. Let's let Ben tell us a little bit about what's going on in the NFL this year. And you are the one.
Yeah, I think it's my screen. Yeah.
Is that your? Oh, that's yours. Yeah. Okay,
yeah, it is. Yep.
I'll let you go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, so like I said, trying to look at quarterbacks coming into the season that I have perceived, are either overachieving or underachieving what we previously thought about them. Through 8 weeks of the season, I have their base Prism PSA 10 price alongside them. I don't know why Darnold isn't popping up. I'll have to edit that after the stream. I also added in like their percentage odds to win the MVP award. That's just ripped off of the Vegas odds into a percentile. So kind of looking at this, I think that an interesting just kind of note here, and this is a trend that we've seen in the NFL the last 3 or 4 years, is there continues to be a 1 or 2 quarterbacks every year that are previously written off, whether it's high draft picks that don't immediately return value based on where they're picked due to whatever team they get placed on. Usually when you have a high pick, it's a bad team. So sometimes the situation isn't great, or if it's just a change of scenery or what. But we've seen this a number of times in recent seasons, and the overachievers that I've highlighted from this year, they just fit right into that mold. Again, Daniel Jones, high draft pick to the New York Giants, did take them to the playoffs one year, but it didn't really, end up working. They chose to move on from him this past offseason. He lands with the Colts, wins the job coming out of training camp over Anthony Richardson, another high pick, and he has been playing at an insane level. The Indianapolis Colts have the best record in the AFC through 8 weeks or 7. I don't think anyone would have predicted that coming into the season. Whether you thought the Colts were going to win the division or not, there's no way anyone would have thought that they would have this record that they do at this stance. Same thing with Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold. So 3 of the top 4 on this list in terms of their quarterback score that I've calculated are all guys that were high draft picks and changed teams. And now they are performing at, kind of what their expected level was when they were drafted as high picks. Baker obviously was on the Browns, bounced around a little bit, landed on the Buccaneers. And then Sam Darnold, high draft pick to the Jets, went to the Panthers for a little bit. And now he's really found some success on the Seattle Seahawks this season.
Thank you for that. And I want to ask you, because you have the Prism value here. And so this is it. I can, this is your, what is, wait a second. Okay, no, I'm looking at my monitor. Never mind.
I was going to say, you might have it pulled up on your end too.
Yeah, I do. So I'm looking at my screen. Okay, I'm now going to look at here, and I see you've got the Prism column. So based on the data that you've pulled together on the quarterback's performance, their quarterback score, and the Prism price, has any of the data that you've pulled for this analysis made you think maybe there's a card here I'd like to buy because I like the player and I think he's maybe underappreciated by the hobby? Has that ever kind of entered your mind? And have you made any purchases yourself based on any of the data that you've presented here, either this data or even in the past, although that might be might be more difficult to pull out of your head right now, but have you thought that way at all?
Yeah, I think honestly, like this entirety of what we're looking at also, like kind of a side note, fits into your whole subject here of shill bidding. Like, because I'm wondering, as someone that's still like relatively new to the sports card space, does that happen more often with modern cards? And that would tie in obviously to these players who I feel like these modern cards, especially quarterbacks, the values can fluctuate day to day almost, like especially game to game, how these guys are performing. But as far as like me purchasing a card or what sticks out to me, I remember when we did the younger quarterbacks kind of analysis back over the summer, Drake May was someone that we had long discussions about. Obviously, he's played at a super high level for the Patriots. His card is up. You can see $67 for his Prism base PSA 10 right now. That's up over $20 since the season began. And I don't know, like it's probably hard to pick up any Drake May cards right now because the value has to just be at the highest it's ever been. But he does look like, as of now, to me, I know Jaden Daniels had a fantastic season last year, but Drake May right now looks like the best quarterback from that draft class. And he was the third one selected. So he definitely sticks out to me on this list, I think.
Cool. Good to know. Good to know. And if you were to advise me, not the audience, nobody else, but me, I don't watch a lot of football. I watch a little bit. I watched a lot more football in the late 80s and the 90s than I have in the last 15 years. But with all that said, actually, I remember I went into a football fantasy league back in I think it was 2003 or 4, and I picked Peyton Manning. I had the first overall pick. I took Peyton Manning, and that was a lot of fun. So I was a bit of a Manning fan from that point on. But growing up where I did, the Minnesota Vikings were kind of the team that we got they were the closest to us in proximity, to Winnipeg in proximity. So my dad's a big Vikings fan, and he likes it more than I do. But in any event, if you were to say to me, Jeremy, here's a player, I think he's a great player. I think the values are fair right now. He might be around for a long time, barring injury, that kind of thing. Does anybody come to mind for you that you would, and never mind me, like even, somebody that you want to do good by? And who comes to mind for you that way? And it doesn't have to be on this list. It could be any, but let's talk quarterback though.
Yeah. Can you answer this question? So would you say that quarterbacks from a card level, cause I've asked a lot of people and I've talked to people at card shows, and it just seems to me like people are most interested when it comes to football in the quarterback cards obviously quarterback is the most popular player on the team usually, but it seems like people are very much interested in quarterback cards in comparison to, running backs or receivers.
Yes, quarterbacks by far. I think, and then after quarterbacks, I think we're looking at wide receivers and running backs, and then it's kind of done after that. There's very few defensive players that get any love ever in the history of the hobby. So that I'm aware of, at least. So yeah, it's quarterbacks way out in front, and we'll bring, hey, Chris, you want to join us now? You get to come on. Okay, guys, we're going to bring Chris Hodge on right now. Welcome back, buddy. Oh, look how shaven you are. The whole head looking good, just like me.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry to spring this on people. I'm sure this is a bit jarring to see me in this naked state.
Yeah.
But here we are. I've lost 15 years.
You have. You're looking good, buddy. Looking good. So the reason why I wanted to bring you on was just to get your thoughts. Like, am I misreading the football market when I say that it's quarterbacks way up here, and then you take a big drop off and you get to wide receivers and running backs? And I think, and is it then, Chris, fair to say that wide receivers and running backs are kind of looked at the same level relative to quarterbacks, and then after running backs and wide receivers, it's like almost nobody? Am I kind of close or what?
Definitely. I don't think we need to like stretch too far to understand why. That's how football itself is interpreted, is that the quarterback is the highest value position, and then you have skills position people, And maybe a few of them, like Jerry Rice or Barry Sanders, will sort of stand out and maybe kind of come to be seen as valuable as some of the great quarterbacks of all time. On the defensive side, we'll see that occasionally too with a player like of Aaron Donald or J.J. Watt's stature, or going back like Dick Butkus has some pretty valuable cards in the hobby. There are exceptions. Jim Brown is a very, very valuable player in the hobby. He wasn't a quarterback. So there are some exceptions, but generally it mirrors how the media and how sports historians track the sport of football.
So there you go, Ben. And like, does that resonate with you? Does it seem to make, and like Chris said, that's how football goes, right? I mean, the quarterback is the leader of the team. Like, they are almost the default captain of the team. Do football teams have captains the way hockey teams do? And I don't even know if baseball and basketball players have captains, or do they just have the superstars who do most of the talking? How does that work?
Yeah, they do have captains that typically the team will, it's different team to team, but typically the team votes on it, during training camp. I do have an answer to your question though. And I think Chris will really like the answer that I have for you when you're asking me, is there someone that's undervalued or just who I would look at in terms of a purchase? I think based off of the numbers I looked at, I didn't include him on that list, but coming off the last few seasons where he wasn't as good statistically as he had been previously, I still think the best buy you could make has to be Patrick Mahomes, just given the state that we are in. This Chiefs team that he has this year, in my opinion, is the best Kansas City Chiefs team that he has had during his time as a quarterback for them. He's already been in a number of Super Bowls, won 3 Super Bowls. I think with how young they really did well this past offseason. I think they're in a spot where they're most likely, barring injuries, going back to the Super Bowl again this year. The long-term sustained success potential is there for him, and we already know he's the best at his position. I'm sure his cards have gone down a little bit from what they were just because his statistical seasons have not been good the last few years, but he's already started to right that ship this year and kind of seems back to his MVP form. He's the odds-on favorite to win MVP by a wide margin right now.
What happened? Like, didn't they go 0-2 to start the season and then came back to 3-2? Like, what about that? Because I think people were a little concerned very early on, and that just shows that that's a sign of, and I'm talking by people, I mean hobbyists, and that's a sign of how this hobby operates. We're a very "what have you done for me lately" type of group, especially when you are buying and selling in the ultra modern era, cards from that era. But what happened there, Ben? Because I was actually surprised to hear you say that you think it's the best team they've ever had. So what happened in that 0-2 start, and why does that not concern you any longer?
Yeah, I think a lot of football, still can get isolated down to randomness, noise, like game to game stuff in the NFL. 1 inch, 1 bounce of the ball can, dictate the outcome of a game. They had a couple close losses, especially the last time they lost was on prime time against the Jacksonville Jaguars, a game they easily, could have won, and they were winning late. They just gave up a drive to lose. But last year, they still went to the Super Bowl despite having a ton of injuries, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Now we're in a spot where they're coming off of their bye week. They have all 3 of their receivers for the first time. This past week against the Raiders was the first time that Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice, and Hollywood Brown had all been on the field together. They're 3 best receivers. So they're in a really, really good spot with those guys back healthy. Their defense is still more than serviceable, and it's a lot younger than it was a few years ago. They hit on some offensive line picks. So I expect them to – the schedule is tough, but I expect them to win quite a few of these remaining games that they have left on the schedule.
All right. Chris, you're nodding. I mean, you follow closer than I do. Does that all resonate with you, what Ben was explaining?
Yeah, that was outstanding. And Mahomes is a pretty comfortable favorite to win MVP right now. He's plus 125 on FanDuel, followed by Josh Allen at plus 350, and then Drake May at plus 700. So he's a big favorite. Now, I wouldn't vote for Mahomes if the season ended today and I had to give an MVP vote. My MVP vote would go to Daniel Jones. I mean, we just saw Ben's metric had Daniel Jones as the top producing quarterback. Daniel Jones has the highest DPA per play in the NFL, and the Colts have a better record than any of these other teams at 6-1 with MVP candidates. So if the season ended today, my pick would be Daniel Jones. But Wouldn't hate it if Mahomes won MVP this year. I was actually talking to a friend about this the other night. There's sort of 3 different lanes for MVP candidates. You have the statistical nerd candidate who, like Daniel Jones, leads that category right now. You have the legacy candidate. Patrick Mahomes only has 2 regular season MVPs so far through his tenure in the NFL. If he got another one, I don't think that's going to reflect poorly on the voters or on this era of football. I think it would reflect just fine. And then there's the narrative guy who kind of combines a little bit of legacy and a little bit of stats, and that's like Baker Mayfield. You know, a guy who's had this tremendous redemption arc, who's playing great football, who's dealing with a lot of injuries and setbacks that are unfortunately happening right now for his team. He has highlight reel plays. He's a really a great guy to rally around. So I think those are kind of your 3 different buckets for MVP voting right now.
And do you agree with that, Ben?
Yeah, I do. And the good thing about the NFL is those debates can change so rapidly. So we do get Patrick Mahomes against the second favorite Josh Allen in 2 weeks. And then I think a week or 2 after that, we get him against Daniel Jones and the Indianapolis Colts. So, those questions, I guess, will get answered in terms of the regular season award there pretty quickly.
All right. Well, I'm just going to bring up one more time so I can see it. So Daniel Jones, Indianapolis Colts, has the highest QB score right now, followed by Mayfield, Drake May, Sam Darnold, Penix Jr., Stroud, Daniels, and Murray of the players that you included here in the analysis. So interesting. All right. Good. Thanks, Ben. Thank you for that. And now let's go back to some other stuff. We're gonna get first, like when Chris comes on, the closer. We're gonna talk about some of the things we've already talked about. I now have 38 comments that I want to get to and address, and many of them are about Chris's look right now, which is awesome. So maybe I'm gonna do that. Ben, you're welcome to stick around, of course, and join the conversation as we get through it. But I'm gonna go through some comments now, guys, and I'm going to start with Card Fuchsius, who said, odd it takes longer to authenticate a graded card than it does to grade it. Yep. Skeppy had a comment here for Leighton, who's now gone, but the comment was, at what point do you separate common sense and logic from comps? Is there ever a time where you just won't pay a value even though the comp says otherwise? And Leighton's not here to answer that, but I think that's a reasonable question from Skeppy, who, by the way, I got to get to know a little bit. So peace out, Skeppy. Not peace out. I don't know why I said that, but good to see you, Skeppy, whose name is Danny. Mr. Minty said, if I want it, I buy it. I don't want to sweat out an auction. So I'm not sure what Steve's getting at there in terms of, sometimes if you want it, you have to sweat out the auction, but maybe he's saying in a buy it now, he'll just buy it. Hockey Card Exchange says Probstein is done with eBay. Yes, we did discuss that earlier, and some people think it's good for the hobby. Some people are indifferent, and he's not leaving the hobby, guys. He's leaving eBay. Doesn't mean that can't be good for the hobby. Very well may be good for the hobby. The proof will be in the success of that platform. And it's a big gamble he's taking, and he's been building that thing for 2 years behind the scenes. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the hobby takes to that platform. We will see. And I think that because it's him and the reputation that precedes him, that it's going to be looked at skeptically by many people, but we'll see what happens. Situational says, how much of eBay's profit is derived from dopamine rushes from auctions? I think that's a really interesting thing to think about. And I think I don't know what percent of their profits, but I think they're making a lot of money off of that. Chris, do you agree with that?
It's been a factor for me a few times.
Yeah.
I can say that. I can say I've had the excitement of, especially here's the real, but this actually doesn't apply to eBay, but here's the real, where they really get you is when, I'm in an extended bit, like Jeremy, you guys on Thursday night, you guys went for 5 hours. Okay. You went for that in that auction. It was funny. It ended like 10 minutes after you guys went
I know. I saw that.
Okay. So I've been on one of those auctions about 2 years ago. I'm pretty sure you guys were covering it. I was engaged in a premiere, one of the very few premiere auctions I've ever won. I was the last auction. It was a Patrick Mahomes card that I won. It was his 2017 select die cut black premier level 1 of 1. I won it at Fanatics. You guys were covering it. It was the last card to end. And, when you're just going back and forth there at the end, and dude, you know, you're like, man, I've put 3 or 4 hours into this. Like, am I gonna lose here?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why it doesn't often get any more money out of me, it does sometimes, but the reason why it doesn't, the auction don't, is because I don't place my initial bid. Like in 90% of the cases, I don't place my initial bid until it's like the final 2 seconds of the auction. And because I wait so long, I can't get another bid in after that. So, but what I do is in that, you know, with more like 10 seconds left, if I already have the bid like I'll have the bid ready to go with 10, 15 seconds left. And then if I see my about to be placed proxy bid or max bid has been exceeded by the other bidders, then I sometimes race to go, edit my bid and get a new one in. And sometimes I just can't get it in. But my point is that oftentimes I don't have the time to get into that game at the end.
Can I just jump in really quickly on that, Jeremy?
Yeah,
I think like especially recent revelations, but I think many of us have long felt this way, that waiting until the very last second to reveal what your bid is by placing it is prudent, because you never know if there's a house bid that's waiting to incrementally nudge you up to your ceiling. You never know if there's a consignor bidding on their own card nudging you up. So waiting until that last possible second so that you don't reveal any information about what your bid is until you absolutely have to is just prudent decision making.
Yeah. And it does defend you somewhat against, like you said, against shill bidders. Ben, have you ever bought cards on eBay or bid? Like what? And I know you dabble in TCG, non-sport type of stuff. Maybe dabble is an understatement, but how do you approach the bidding process at the end to make sure that you don't maybe get too carried away, or you do?
Yeah, I have won some Pokemon cards at auction before, and I would say, I guess kind of the same strategy as you, Jeremy. I typically don't bid until like I absolutely have to, like the very last few seconds.
Yeah. Okay. Good question. Situational. Simon466 says, I appreciate the security of authenticity as a seller, so there is no false claims from buyers and scammers. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Chris, anything to add?
Yeah, I thought there was some really great commentary before about making the option available for buyers and sellers or particularly for buyers to avail themselves of the authenticity program. And I don't want to defend the counterpoint, but I just want to give it airtime. And the counterpoint is that eBay has a duty to, or at least I believe it sees itself as having a duty to protect both sides of the party from returns and from returns based on, claiming that the item wasn't as described, or, there was a problem, years ago, especially during that first bull run market that we had of this decade, where people were wildly speculating on players. They'd buy a card and hope that player did well in the playoffs, and if they didn't, then they would return it and say it's not as described, and it was a bit of a logjam and a bit of a mess. And so the authenticity program gets in there and it sort of stands in between people manipulating the return policy and the return window. And so, they evaluate it. They make sure everything is as described. If there are any discrepancies, they notify the buyer and give them the option to proceed or not. So everything's above board there. Everything's known. And it just makes it a little bit more difficult to manipulate that return window. And so if people let's say people start opting out of the authenticity program, and then they start getting taken advantage of again by people manipulating the return window, well, then they're going to go to eBay and they're going to say, hey, look, I have this problem. Can you resolve this dispute? And then eBay is going to have to allocate a lot of resources back to adjudicating these disputes. And so I can, I'm not saying I agree with it, but that sort of is part of, I think, the reasoning behind why they would just mandate this policy, at least for items over a certain value, because they're saying, look, we're just going to make sure that it's right the first time so that we don't give people the opportunity to manipulate these return windows.
Yeah. Good comments. Thank you, gentlemen. Stuke said eBay authentication damaged my card, so I got a 50% refund and kept the card. So good for buyer right there. Hey, Josh, you want to join us now? You good? Thumbs up. I can't see your thumb. No thumb. Higher. Good. All right, guys. Please welcome Josh Adams to the screen.
What's up?
Hey. Welcome.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Chris, Ben, what's up?
How's it going?
Good, Chris. You look 20 years younger.
I know. Dude, I round the corner, like just cut my hair today, round the corner and see Christina, and she jumps a little bit.
All right, let's keep on rolling here, guys. American Dream Album said, what is worse, shilling, trimming a card, or lying to someone who wants to buy your card and saying you have other offers when you really don't? I see a lot of number 3 in the hobby. The question is, what is worse? I think the topic that American Dream wants to discuss is the third item here.
Yes.
Third. What is worse, shilling, trimming, or lying to someone? I will tell you right now, I think lying to someone is probably the least offensive to the hobby. I don't know how to rank shilling and trimming. I think they're both should be outlawed. I mean, I am, I was going to say, like, okay, trimming a card because you want it to fit in your album it's a common card that no one cares about. Do whatever you want to do to your cards that you're never going to sell. Like, who cares about that? But trimming a card to then sell undisclosed, that's as bad as what's worse, that or shilling? I don't think one is worse than the other. I might want more time to think about it, but I can't think. Josh, do you have any thoughts? Which is worse, shilling or trimming?
Trimming's the worst by far.
Oh,
absolutely.
Okay.
Because you expect to be shilled, like you talked about earlier, and the whole lying thing. You expect. I hate to say it. You expect to be lied to. Like, whenever someone tells me I already had these offers, I turn around. I don't believe them. I'm like, okay, you sure? No way. Okay, and it's always like some crazy number. Like, no, you didn't. But the trimming, you can't tell, and that's intentionally made to deceive you. So trimming's the worst. They're all 3 different forms of lying, by the way. Each example here is a form of lying. Trimming is the worst form of lying.
Okay. Good take. I don't know that I agree, but I appreciate, and I don't know that I don't agree. I need to think about it more. Chris, with about 90 seconds to think about it, do you have any thoughts? Which is worse?
Do I get 3 seconds to talk for every second I had to think about it? No, I'm just kidding. I will not do that to you guys. But listen, okay. I like what Josh pointed out about each of these is sort of a lie, and sort of we can imagine a scenario very easily where each of them is a lie designed to induce somebody to part with their money. So we start getting into the fraud territory very quickly here. But I look at the 3 and I say, which of these can cause the most harm on an average basis? Which of these will force a person to be separated from the largest amount of money in most instances? And so lying to someone about having fake offers, that's difficult to get away with, because, you know, if the card has a market value you've estimated at $2,500 and someone says, well, I got an offer for $3,000, they might induce you into paying $500 more, and that sucks and it shouldn't happen. But if they tell you, oh, I have an offer for $10,000, you know, I'm going to say, okay, go take that then, buddy. You know, you're out of your mind if you think I'm going to pay 4 times more than what the market bears for this card. So I think it's you can definitely hurt people by lying about fake offers, but I'm not sure if that's where the most damage can get done. Trimming is very tricky. A trimming can take a card that ought to be in an altered holder, and if it puts it into a 9 or a 10 holder, we can talk about people losing lots and lots and lots of money on account of a trimmed card. So I think on average, trimming can be very, very harmful. So I think that supports Josh's point of view. And then shilling once again kind of falls into that bucket too, where, like, you know, if I've predetermined what my price to pay is and somebody shills me, you know, and they end up bidding over what I determined I was going to pay, you know, people obviously get hurt that way and they get taken advantage of that way. But I think I have to side with Josh. I think trimming is going to be the capital offense here.
Wow. Hey, Ben, do you have any thoughts on this?
I mean, from an outsider's perspective in the TCG community, I would agree with Josh. Like, I feel like going into any deal, you're just expected to get lied to and you're expected to get shilled something. So, by default, I would have to agree with him there.
Okay, well, let's see what the chat says. Brad's Vintage says trimming is the worst. Skeppy says trimming is forever. Splenda says technically shilling and trimming are both lying. Yep. Mikey's Cards, trimming. Bob Boozle, all 3 result in meeting my dragons. Not a fan of any. Chris C says trimming. Junk Wax Museum, good evening to you. Linda's First says shilling is the worst, then trimming, then faking offers. Okay, fair comments from everybody. Okay, those are the comments from the chat. Bringing the heat, though, says cracking, doctoring, and reholdering in higher grade sounds like PWCC business plan. Of course, shilling afterwards too. Brad's Vintage says trimming is the worst of the three by far because it is the only scenario I end up with a card I do not want in my collection. That kind of hits home for me a little bit because I'm still not sure which I think is worth, trimming or shilling. I have some control over shilling. I can choose not to pay the price whether I'm being shilled or not. Trimming, I'm sure I could pull out all my slabs and I've got trimmed cards in my collection and I don't know it. So is ignorance bliss? I mean, it is because I don't know it, but I hate that I know I have some and I don't know which ones they are, but I'm sure I do. Just like I'm sure I have some fake patches in my patch card collection as well. Just hate that it all happens. Linda's first says, I don't like this attitude that because something is happening that we just accept it. What is like I've said before though, Linda's first, what's the option? Stop buying cards. Or only buy privately. Stop buying cards online at auctions. That's your only way that I can think of where you just don't accept it's happening. But I do accept I do accept it's happening because it is. It's just reality. It is happening. And it's probably happening a lot more than you think it's happening. And maybe with the P. Ryan situation, people are like, wow, and maybe some people like, I never thought he would do that. And now they're like, well, if he could do it, anyone could do it. Like, I'm sure people are thinking that way as well. So yeah, it's just and it sucks. I think back to Linda's first comment. Yeah, it sucks that we have to take that position. But if I want the card and I'm willing to pay up to the price I'm willing to pay, and I could have got a cheaper if I wasn't shilled, I'm never going to know the difference anyway. Just like I don't know if I have trim cards sometimes. So it's a tough situation. Dan the Card Man says trimming probably edges it because it's more often calculated and planned. Okay. Linda's first says, I prefer bitching about it. Dan goes on to say, but all equal in the scumbag awards. Fair. Chris C says PSA first ever graded card was trimmed. That's interesting. So was it really trimmed or is it just mislabeled and it should say hand cut? Maybe it should say hand cut because it came from Josh. Go, Josh.
It's trimmed. It was admitted in Bill Mastro's plea agreement that he trimmed it. So it's a trim.
But I thought it was admitted in Bill Mastro's plea agreement, as you put it, but that he cut it from like a sheet or something.
It was a 3-card sheet that they found in Florida. But it's still trimmed because you cut it from the original piece. The original piece is a 3-card panel. He trimmed it off of the 3-card panel, and it was never sold as a loose card. It was not sold. It never existed as a loose card. It was always part of the 3-card panel.
Right, but the distinction between hand cut for the hobby and trimmed is that a hand cut card only came to the public in the form where you would have to hand cut it. Whereas a trimmed card came, a trim card you could have got out of the cigarette pack. So that's what. But then I'm still a little confused there. But I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. Yeah. Okay, let's go to the next comment. Back and then American Dream says, he wants to talk about number 3.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Can we just talk very briefly about number 3? Number 3 is very, very irritating. Okay. Because, for example, like if I'm engaging through DMs with somebody who has a card that I want and they start making up offers, like it kind of just ends the whole thing before it even gets started, because it's like, okay, so let's say the card's worth $250 and they're telling me they got offers for $400. Well, there's nowhere we can go from here because what can we do? Like if I offer you even $300, how can you accept that? You can't accept it. You already told me you had a better offer for $400. So like, there's no room there. There's no room to do anything. It turns off the faucet. It makes any negotiation very unlikely, and it prevents anything from ever getting off the ground. It's this impossibly hard line that gets drawn where it's just like, okay, so you have this ridiculous offer. So there's nothing we can talk about here. Either you want me to just completely bend over or nothing's going to happen here. So, I hate it too. I'm with this guy. I hate it. I hate the line about the offers.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
So I know you said right there that like, that's how you would handle it. If somebody messages you, whatever, it just ends the conversation. How do you handle that in a DM conversation versus an in-person at a card show conversation?
Who's that for? Is that for you? That Jeremy? Go ahead.
Well, yeah, and I was about. It's funny you asked that, Ben, because that's what I was just about to get to. Was I'm at so set up at a card show. It happened to me at the Saskatoon show recently. Somebody comes by my booth. I forget the card even. It doesn't matter, but they're like, "Yeah, looking to sell this. How much would you offer?" I'm like, "I don't know. How much do you want?" Well, I got an offer for $3,000. So what does that mean? Does that mean that I have to come in at $3,100 to have a chance to buy the card? Are you willing to sell it to me for $2,500? Like, and I've obviously he maybe doesn't want to let it go for $2,500, but and I can't think of an exact scenario, but I feel like I've been in the situation where someone's like, okay, I got an offer. I had an offer for $400. Okay, so I'll give you $300. Like, well, okay, sure, sold. So that has happened too. So are you BSing me that you had an offer for $400, or did that guy disappear on you? Was it not a serious offer? Like, I want to know you had an offer. Show me the message. Prove to me that you had that offer. And if you did, are you just fishing for the most money you can possibly get? Why didn't you take that offer? I mean, it can go in so many different directions. And I know that like there's a lot of there's moving parts there, but yeah, oftentimes, it's like, okay, go take it. Go get that offer then. Don't waste my time. You're obviously not going to take my offer. So yeah. Go find
Jeremy, have you ever had a situation? I have had this happen to me once or twice where they quote me some ridiculous offer. And I'm just like, nah, I can't do that. But if ever, that offer falls through, here's my best. And then what do you know? A week later, the offer fell through. It's just, it's tough, man. It's so irritating.
It's very, very irritating. Absolutely. Jeremy from California. Yeah, looking forward to the Vintage Spotlight podcast coming out late next week. Bob Boozle says, will A&W and Jeremy Lee become friends by the end of the show? Stay tuned. I'm going to say yes. I'm Bob Boozle. I'm going to say yes. Yes, we will. Situational says, Canadians are usually so nice. Usually, maybe not tonight. 35 Auburn. Have you heard or think anything will happen to the Fanatics account caught shill bidding? The Fanatics policy says yes, but we often see money win on those decisions. I have not heard anything, Auburn. And what do I think? I don't know.
The card did get taken down. That's not responsive to what 35 Auburn is saying directly here, but that is evidence that something happened in response to the surfacing of information, namely that particular Jordan sticker autograph was removed from the auction.
Well said. Thank you. That did occur. Michael Rader says, I like the way you run your show, Jeremy. A&W was out of line and offered nothing during the conversation. Auburn says, if Fanatics Collect identifies a user violating bidding policies, we block them from accessing Fanatics Collect and permanently close their Fanatics Collect account. A&W, this is already old, by the way. This is like 40 minutes old, says, I never called into question your transparency, reputation, integrity, etc. I thought you were friends with P. Ryan because you mentioned speaking with him prior to the Jackson auction about it. Yes, I knew he was the previous owner because he put it on Instagram, and I reached out to him to learn more about the card. That's what happened. I don't think that makes us friends. Bob Boozle says, Collect Newsletter. Jeremy Lee confirms he is human, at least. And three, I don't know what that says there. Thank you, Bob Boozle. A&W says, apology accepted. That's why I think we're going to be friends. Linda's First says, this is why Jay Lee's the best. He's just a good human. Thank you, Linda's First. Craig Scards, love the list. Jay Lee, thank you. Shaheen says, super thankful to have you in the hobby, Jeremy. Nobody's perfect. Passion is evident. Thank you, Shaheen. A&W says, love your show, Jay Lee. All is well. See, we're friends. We're friends.
Isn't that just a beautiful moment? Can we just reflect on that? Isn't this beautiful? There was both sides had a point of view. They came to a resolution. Jeremy was able to be passionate and strong. A&W came into an understanding. I just think that's a great moment.
Thank you for highlighting that, Chris. And I do feel bad about my behavior. I'm willing to say that I do. I feel bad about my behavior, and I mean publicly in front of what'll be over 2,000 people. I'm embarrassed by that at this point.
Well, I hope nobody ever puts a camera on me watching a Chicago Bears game because you're gonna hear 10 times worse.
You should have saw me last week, that Denver Broncos game, man. I had the Broncos. Oh boy, don't get me started.
And you ended up winning the game. So
I did, but it was worth it. But wow.
Splenda Sports Cards. I govern myself with Zinn and Miller Lite. I think he makes this comment every week. Splenda. Bob Ouzlo says, though an overreaction is entertaining, hey, that's okay too. Jeff's card journey says it's all good, Jeremy. Thank you, Jeff. Chris says, Jeremy, you're a stand-up guy. Communication is key. Yes, communication is key. Midlife Greg, Jeremy, you're the GOAT. Don't beat yourself up. You're a total class act, even more so in person. Thank you, Greg. I appreciate that. Appreciate all the positive stuff here, guys. But don't, I need to be accountable for my actions too. And I'm trying to be. Stukes, Jeremy is tall in person. Yes, I am. Stukes, I'm the same height as Michael Jordan, #1 man in the hobby. Skeppy says, Ben, your thoughts on the gambling issues going on. If the NFL gets wrapped up in this, how do you see it affecting current modern cards?
Oh, wow. I think Chris and I could probably do a 2-hour long podcast on the gambling stuff that's going on. But I look, sure, it may affect things from like a card standpoint, but the NBA has this huge scandal, that goes live this week. And a few days later, the Baltimore Ravens just got in trouble for listing Lamar Jackson as a full participant at practice. He's missed the last few games. They listed him as a full participant at practice on Friday, assuming he would play in the game. And then they come out today and they say he's not going to play. And you are not allowed to do that. They're going to get in trouble for it. But that drastically alters the betting line. Like if they list him as a full participant, he practices Friday, everybody bets the Ravens -6.5. And now they wake up today and he's not going to play. That line is down to like 2.5, 3. So the Ravens just won up to the NBA and now they're getting in trouble for something completely separate. So yeah, it's interesting to talk about and think about. I didn't really make the connection to the cards, but I do wonder, if that would affect things.
Thank you for those thoughts, Ben. Now, on a similar token, I'm going to go to this comment from Chris. That says, Chris Hoge, thoughts on NBA betting scandal. I bet this is just the tip of the iceberg. So similar sort of topic. Chris, you want to... I'm just going to say one thing first, is that don't these guys make enough money? Don't they make enough money? Is there that much greed out there? I guess there is.
How long shall we go on this, Jeremy? Should I keep this to 30 seconds? Okay, short. All right. So to the point of, do they make enough money? This isn't for them. Like, for example, with Terry Rozier, he probably has a group of friends that he grew up with, and they don't have money, and he's got a ton of money. And he says, you guys want to make 10 grand tonight? Bet my unders. I'm going out early. And that's how it works. He's helping friends. He's enriching friends. And so it's ugly, and it shows just how easily manipulable that situation is. And Congress has called for Adam Silver to appear in front of them. Adam Silver has started making comments about making sure gambling ads and content isn't put in front of kids. We're going to create passwords and there's a lot of work that's going to get done here. My one unique, obviously this gambling stuff is atrocious. It's horrible for the sport. It calls the integrity of everything into question. Luckily, it's just things like Terry Rozier promising his unders, and nothing more egregious actually impacts high stakes games has been unearthed, at least not yet. But here's my one take that you might not hear anywhere else. So Terry Rozier's attorney issued a statement, and the statement said, look, Rozier was cleared of wrongdoing by the NBA. He was cooperating with the FBI. He was never told that he was a subject of the investigation by the FBI. And then they decided to basically raid him and do a perp walk, and they never even gave him the chance to turn himself in. Why did they do this to him? Why did they try to create a spectacle here? Why is the FBI sort of trying to commandeer the news cycle and turn this into this big headline, 24, 48, 72, 96 hour thing? Why did Rozier, why did my client get treated this way, basically, is what the attorney was intimating. And I do think that's an interesting question. Why such pomp and circumstance here? It's turned into a big spectacle. And that's my one novel contribution that you might not hear somewhere else.
Josh, you're muted, buddy. You're muted.
How about now? There you go. I'll figure it out. All right. So I can answer Chris's question, although I have experience in that area, although not with high profile clients. But sometimes in a case of fraud, or where there's documents or emails or other individuals, the FBI doesn't want to give someone a heads up that, hey, we indicted you, come in next Thursday, because then they could either destroy evidence or collude with other co-defendants to either get their story straight or rig something or again, destroy evidence, is really obstruct justice is the real concern. I'm not saying that's what happened here, but that's what happened in cases that I've had specifically. That's what has happened. That they tell me they're going to indict this guy, and then they pick him up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and they don't tell me because they're afraid he's going to either flee, which these guys weren't going to flee, but probably destroy evidence like records or something, or text messages. Apparently, although that's silly because you can get a subpoena for the phone company and you have those anyway. But
that's a great point from somebody who knows of which they speak.
For once.
All right. Okay, let's continue on, guys. Rock Latex said, I had to go back 25 minutes to see what I've missed. You might have to go back further than that, Rock Latex. Stuke, as my dad always said, some people are good looking and the rest have hair. Cheers to that. Jeff's Card Journey, welcome to the club, Hoj. Linda's first, whoa, Hoj. Linda's first, the closer has a new look. A&W says, I have my Webster Dictionary, candles, and nature sounds playlist ready to go. And A&W says, a more aerodynamic Chris Hoj. Splenda says, these damn ads, all caps. Yeah, as I mentioned before, I have the ad set to the minimum, guys. I do, I swear. But also, get YouTube Premium. Trust me, you'll love it. I love it. And you can now keep the app open on your phone when you're doing other apps on your phone. I'm a big fan of it. Skeppy says, peace out. Does that mean I'm banned? What did I do? I meant to say like, hey, Skeppy, peace. I damn the card, man. So many auctions end in the early AM Australia time. Nothing like waking up for a last second bid, only to be outbid before you can place your bid. Yeah, especially if you're having to set the alarm. Steve Kenway, the owner of Rolling Insights, says, Jeremy, thanks so much for having us on Sports Cards Live. We really appreciate the partnership and look forward to catching up again, both the show and in person. Rolling Insights team. Thank you to Rolling Insights and Steve Kenway for their support for the past 8 or 9 months, for which Ben has been joining us, representing them. Bob Boozle, I think Hoj is going to win Homecoming King this year. Inspired Sports Cards says, has anyone seen one of the perforated cards from the Bird Magic Irving card separated and graded by itself? If so, how is it classified by the grading company? I have. I almost bought it at a recent national, I think it was the Larry Bird. I think it was in like a Beckett 7. The guy wanted like $60. I was like, that's so cool. I didn't buy it. I don't remember how it was labeled. Josh, Chris, do either of you know how PSA or Beckett labeled these cards if they're perforated? Josh?
I don't know, but I know they're 3 separate cards. They're meant to be broken up. But I don't know how PSA grades.
Chris is doing some quick research. We'll come back to that. Oh, you found something?
If I can find a slab of it where it's just one of the players.
Put your finger up when you find it. I'll go to the next comment in the meantime. Adam, the real 27 guy, who I thought is in bed by now during the show. Adam, good to see you. Although he might be still on a different sleep cycle after our show on Thursday went for 5 hours. But he says, when this happens, this is telling people I have more offers. He says, when this happens, I just take them at their word and say, that's way more than I do. I think you should take that. And I like that response as well. Sign and Slab said, the card being sold. Okay, so this is back to the P. Ryan card that he bid on that was being sold via Acquire, the fourth party, through the third party, which is Fanatics. I'm having fun with this third and fourth party lingo. But he says the card was being sold through Acquire. So that direct account won't be taken down. Because, and the reason I think what Sign and Slab is saying is because Patrick Ryan was not the consigner of the card to Fanatics Collect. Acquire was the consigner of the card to Fanatics Collect through their anonymous client, P. Ryan. So there is a loophole there for Fanatics Collect not to get rid of the account that P. Ryan has. Not to the word is escaping my mind right now, Chris. What's the word I'm looking for? Not to cancel the account or whatever it is. So that's a loophole there. There's more talk about this. So let me just get through those quickly, Chris, here. Because Dan the Cardman says that's the kind of semantics that made PWCC what it was, to which Sign and Slab says it's actually not, Dan. It reveals a flaw in the system. Sign and Slab goes on to say Fanatics can only enforce what they know. So to close the loop, Acquire would need to disclose their consigners. How likely does anyone think that is? Well, not lucky, but the situation is that Fanatics does know because P. Ryan showed it on his Instagram. So Fanatics does know. I know Fanatics knows because Fanatics asked me and Adam to talk about it on our show on Thursday night to say they do not condone this behavior. So they definitely know about it. Chris.
Yeah, and in law, this is a matter of interpretation. There are multiple styles of interpreting a document. There's the letter of the document, the plain text reading, and then there's the spirit of the document? What is it trying to accomplish? And here, I think it's quite clear that however the letter might be interpreted, the letter of the document one way or another, the spirit of it is very clearly to prevent somebody from sending one of their own items that then ends up in a Fanatics premiere or otherwise Fanatics auction, and then having that person bid on it. I think we can infer, or at least if I were inferring what the spirit of that term that 35 Auburn is quoting, I think the spirit of it is not in question here.
Yeah, well, yeah, I can't imagine it would be. Yeah. Kendall says, as someone who just dabbled in some auctions on eBay as a seller, I assure you, not all auctions are shilled. Yeah, I for sure, absolutely. I've sold hundreds of cards on eBay, not through myself, through the Slab Sharks account, and I've never bid on my own item. Happy to show you guys that. Like, Sign and Slab says, okay, sorry, did that one already. Skeppy says, Jeremy told me to peace out. I guess, I think I did that one already. Christina's PC says, my language on a Calm Tuesday is worse, Jeremy.
Accurate.
Daniel Brown said, where'd it go? Daniel Brown. Hoj, who do you think is taller, Paul Pierce or Jeremy Lee? I don't know if you caught that from...
I've never seen Paul Pierce in person, so I vote Jeremy.
Did you catch my rant on Thursday?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. You were tough on Paul, man.
My Paul Pierce is dead to me rant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brianna says, I think it's more about helping their buddies make more money. I forget what that's about now. I knew at the time. Sorry, Brianna and Brandon. Maybe it's Brandon. And Bob Boozle says, YouTube upcharges? Hell nah. No upcharges for Bob Boozle for sure. All right. Gosh, you guys.
I found the slab. I found a slab of that bird.
Thank you. I forgot about that.
Okay, so it's real quick. It's BV. This is a BVG slab, and it's labeled as a 1980-81 tops, and it lists all three. It lists the bird card, the Irving card, and the Magic card, which are number 34, 174, and 139. Then below it says single panel. It says single panel below it, and it's just Larry Bird inside the slab. So this BVG slab, it sold on ComC about a week ago. And single panel is how they put all three, which, if I were classifying this card, what's the need to put all three? I mean, this card stands alone by itself. It has its own card number. It has its own image on the front. And it has Larry Bird's statistics on the back. It's card number 34. But yeah, they identify all three cards from the three card sheet. And then they say that this is single panel.
So it's not really, there's no hand cut or perforated, just simply single panel. That's
single
all
panel.
It says.
Yep.
I'm just doing it's just so I can share this. I'm doing a search in Card Ladder right now for single panel and see.
Yeah, or put it the way it comes. He called it is 1980-81 tops separated Larry Bird. That should be
1980 tops Larry Bird
separated.
So that should.
Does that?
But you got to spell bird right. Hold on, you got to spell bird right when you do this. And there's an I in bird.
That's an important one to spell right. And then just go by, instead of by price, sort by date.
Got it.
And then that should bring it up.
Here
right
we are.
There it is. Yep.
Yeah, this looks like the one that I saw.
Yeah. Okay.
It simply says. So it does say Bird Irving Magic. That's interesting. It says right on there. 1980-81 tops, number 634, Bird, Irving, Johnson, but it's just a single panel. Why would they even put those other guys' names on there, Chris? Like that's weird, hey?
Yeah, that's not how I would classify it.
No, that's and Adam's not with us on screen to tell us when this card was graded, because he can pretty much tell from the from the serial
just
number.
From the cert, yeah.
Yeah, I certainly can't, but not seeing any more with those although what if we just do this and go to just 1980 top separated, and let's put in PSA to see if we can see if PSA how they nothing. So separated, what about perforated? I wonder if any of that comes up. But nothing graded. Oh, there's that. That's a different one. That's a different card even. It's not even the rookie. Look at this. Same company, Beckett, but this time they only have Larry Bird on the label.
And they call it perforated rather than single panel.
Perfect. So that's a BVG. I forget if the other one was BVG or BGS, but that just maybe those are 20 years in between slabbings. So, oh, here's a magic. What's this? This is I don't know what company is this.
It's got the name is like really tiny up there.
That's
At the
Chris's like thermal printer printed that one out.
Yeah. What? No, seriously. What? Graded SPA 6 sold in 2022.
That's designed to dupe the dyslexic people into thinking it's the green PSA.
Oh yeah. Oh, they got both bases covered, PSA and SGC for the green label. So they're trying to fool a bunch of people there. Yeah, I'm not sure what to make of that.
Check out this from Hoops Hobby Talk. There is a BVG9 on eBay labeled 1980 81 Topps number 34 Larry Bird. That's how I would do it. I like that.
I think you can see for yourself it's perforated. You don't necessarily need to write that on the slab, but hey, interesting little topic right there. Now, I don't think we've really touched, Chris, with you at least, on the whole shill bidding issue. You listened to the earlier parts of the show. You saw me get pretty worked up and then calming back down. Me and A&W are now friends. What are your thoughts on the situation? And what are your thoughts on the state of shill bidding in the hobby? And just I know this we're already coming up on 2.5 hours, and I've lost my mind a couple times. Have you even opined on this yet? So if you haven't, then great. If you have, I'm sorry.
Not much, really. I think I love the point that 35 Auburn made that Dan and Sign and Slab are elaborating on in the comments, which seems to be a pretty clear policy violation in spirit, if not by letter. And I think that's worth considering. I also believe in a sense of proportionality. So, I think that we don't send anybody to the death penalty for doing something bad, or not all bad things. Some things deserve it, some things deserve less. So, I think this is obviously tough, and I think I believe in condemning the action and not condemning human beings per se. I think I don't judge anybody by their worst day. I don't judge anybody by their best day. So I don't believe that no human being is irredeemable here. I think people deserve the opportunity for redemption, but there needs to be we need to have a situation that shows remorse. We want a situation that hey, maybe a break. We need to take a lengthy break here from things. There should be something commensurate with what happened here. And I think if we could get to something more formal, like I think that invoking the policy, I think, is a good start. And if that policy does, say that if somebody is shown to have bid on their own item that is available, then we're going to invoke this policy and take away their ability to participate. And it's a blanket removal. But then after a year, after 2 years or something, or whatever is appropriate in the eyes of the company, then it can get revisited after a certain amount of time, and we can look at it and say, do we believe that we can go forward with confidence? But I'll tell you this: if I was a bidder, or if I was somebody participating, and I knew that previously this consignor had bid on their cards, I'd like to know in advance that this is one of their cards, so that I can, if they are then going to be bidding in the future, that I can go into open eyes and know what I might be getting myself involved in. So, I think it sucks, man. I think Leighton vented on it quite well. It obviously interferes with my ability to do my job. If sales data is coming in that was influenced illicitly, calls into question the credibility of sales data, makes it harder to confidently interact with this hobby. It interferes with people's ability to just enjoy the recreation of collecting, buying, selling, and trading cards. So it sucks, man. It's quite unfortunate.
You said, I forget how you worded it, but basically, we're not going to send somebody to the electric chair for this sort of thing. I forget what your exact wording was, but I'm thinking back to what happened when the sports card therapist was I feel like it's a very similar situation from the perception of everybody else. Again, none of us really know what went on in P. Ryan's head. None of us really know what went on in Rob, the sports card therapist's head when these guys both, one outed himself and the other one got outed. I forget how therapist was outed. But in any event, therapist disappeared from the hobby and actually didn't make a return to Hobby Airwaves until like last month when he appeared on the Sports Card Lessons podcast with Big Ken, who's been on this show, and I think you've been on with him, Chris. And but therapist, he extradited himself from the hobby for 2 years because of that. I don't know about P. Ryan. I don't think he's going to take himself out of the hobby. He seems to be posting regularly right now, talking about his autograph project, and from the video he put out, he, in his own head, what he says is, my intentions were not to shill or manipulate. That's what he tells us. And if that's, I know nobody agreed. Nobody out there is going to believe him, but just take that leap of faith for a moment and say, if that's true, if that is true, and I know there's a lot of skepticism, I see smirking. If it's true, then, you know, what is his course of action? Well, what is his course of action? Is he going to, like, he loves this hobby. It seems like he loves his hobby. Is he going to take himself out of the hobby like the sports car therapist did because of some, you know, the mob, because of the mob? Whether the mob is right or wrong doesn't even matter here. It's just, it exists. So I don't know. I mean, it's got to be tough on him, the human, to be going through this. If in his mind he didn't do anything wrong, even if he did something stupid, but maybe it was maybe, I'm just saying, like, it might have, and I'm probably going to catch slack for this, but guys, I'm just trying to think about the whole scenario. If in his mind what he did was a genuine mistake, what's the course of action? Because if he's certainly guilty, and also on the flip side, if what he did was meant to manipulate, then what's the course of action? And I mean, this is never going to go away. Doesn't matter who stops talking about it. It's not going to go away because there's people in the hobby that won't let it go away. So for better or for worse, right or wrong, it is what it is. It's not going to go away. So yeah, Chris, any response to everything that I just said?
Well said, man. It's a difficult topic, and I actually find that citing the Fanatics Collect policy is very instructive here, because that can provide at least one measure of recourse that he or anybody knowingly engaged with a marketplace that had that policy. And so whether it was intentional or not, if that policy is violated, policy says what the policy says. So in that case, let's see that policy get enforced. And then that policy doesn't need to be permanent. It can be revisited after a period of time. They can say, look, you know, let's have a conversation. Are you not going to do this again? Are you willing to, you know, are we're going to make it known that these are your items, that people can go into it with an open eyes, at least for a period of time. I mean, there are ways to creatively address it. And you know, compassion is not the story that's going to be of interest to people right now. But at some point, I do think that word enters the discussion, and I do think that we say at some point that the penalty is commensurate with the infraction, and that the court of public opinion is its own thing too. That's separate, and that this is an albatross that will hang for a long time, I think, and reputation is tough, man. And yeah, I think that's a tough. I don't envy somebody dealing with that.
I sure hope I never make a bid by mistake. Got to tell, like, by genuine mistake, because, oh my gosh, like you there's no escaping it. How about you, Josh Adams? Any thoughts on this? Oh, I see Joe's come back in the background. Joe, let's bring Joe on the screen. We'll go 5 ways now. Hello, welcome back. But just, yeah, join the party. We're going to go to Josh on this. And what do you think, Josh?
I have nothing to say about it. Everyone else said everything. I haven't really thought about it at all. So I'll listen to what everyone else said.
All right. Hi, Joe. Welcome back. Did you take a nap? Did you have some dinner? What was going on?
Oh, I took a walk down to the water. It was a lovely evening, a good little northwest swell rolling in, and just stretched out my back a bit. So all is well.
Right on. Chris, there was one comment here. Splenda. He says, Chris, would Card Ladder accept a private sale from a publicly known shill bidder? Is there a process for folks caught involved in fraud-like behavior?
Absolutely. So on within Card Ladder's private sales process, which is publicly known. It's a document online. If you just go to Google and search Card Ladder private sales, you'll get to the document, and or Card Ladder private sales FAQ. And in that document, we reserve several rights. One of the rights we reserve is the right to decline even reviewing or approving a private sale from somebody who is not in good standing in the trading card community. And so if somebody, especially recently, was involved in any form of manipulating people for the intent of costing them or taking money from them, which, arguably that's what a shill bid is, but that's not the only type of nasty behavior that people can engage in. If we know for a fact that that's happened, or if there's a lot of credible evidence existing that happened, then we right then and there reserve the right to say no. Because there's a party who is a little bit questionable or very questionable to this deal, that we're not saying it didn't happen. We're not saying the sale didn't happen. We're just saying that we're going to reserve the right to not review it and to not approve it. We reserve the right at that phase, and then we reserve the right at a later phase too. So if it later gets revealed that the person who submitted a private sale to us, that their standing then later falls into jeopardy, and that it later gets shown quite convincingly that person was involved in things that has ruined their good standing in the hobby, we reserve the right to remove their private sales at that time too. So on two different levels, we're conscientious of that. So now we try not to be condemnatory of people. I don't even know if that's a word. We try not to condemn people without strong reason to do so. But yeah, if somebody is clearly not in good standing in the community, and clearly is somebody who's has a pattern in practice of, let's say, shill bidding, yeah, we reserve the right to say no to that one.
I think that's a good policy, Chris. I think that's a good policy right there. What's up, David Marone? Sancho says shill bidding keeps the market strong. That's an interesting take, Sancho. I don't know that I saw any pushback in the chat on that comment. I'm surprised I didn't. But it's an interesting take. We're not going to spend any more time on that. Bringing the Heat says you got to keep it separated. Yeah. Len 6 says, does the Tembec test cards come up? Do the Tembec test cards come up in Card Ladder? Do you know what? I know Tembec was the. What's that, Chris?
I don't know what those are. Tembec test cards.
Yeah, they were made in like 89 OPC. It's yeah. Anyway,
yes, they do. We've got looks like 131 results from the 1989-90 OPC Tembec test. Mike Foligno.
Yeah, hockey.
Christian Rutu.
Yeah, Christian Rutu. Yeah, Buffalo Sabres. That's right. Was he also on the Blackhawks, Josh?
Yeah, Blackhawks legend, Christian Rutu. Thank you very much. Yes.
Sign and Slab says, okay, back to where we were. Spirit of the letter or law, unless Fanatics or any other auction house eliminates consigning through other consigners, this flaw will remain. How do they eliminate that though, right? Like, how do they know where their consigners' cards are coming from? So yeah, Sign and Slab's comment, I think, is the point well taken. I just don't think it's practical. 35 Auburn says it's difficult to detect, but when caught, consequences and effort would limit shill bidding. Harder to shill when you can't buy, sell on that site. Yep. USMNT says, who cares what the mob thinks? Only the individual knows the intent. I tend to think how the individual deals with the situation shows you their intent to some degree. That's it. Yeah, I mean, okay, fair comment there. And then it comes down to, what do people do afterwards? We saw what the sports card therapist did. I still don't know that I know what was going on in his head. We've seen what Patrick Ryan has done with his 16-minute video that came out shortly after. And now the only other thing I see him doing is just more posting on Instagram to his story about unrelated things. So yeah, for everybody to decide for themselves. Dan the Cardman says, again, though, no one really knows intent. Only he would. That's true. A lot of people, they express like they know what other people's intention is, but what that really is, it's called projecting. That's what that is. You are projecting what you would have done in that situation if you were that person, but no one really knows what's going on in anyone else's head. Simple as that. Yeppy says, Probstein sold PSA 10 Star Power MJ. The Fanatic sold for $30K with a specific cert number. Buyer sold it for $28.50. No shilling there. The 2850 sales not in pop report. Card ladder CL, I think card ladder breaks the value. Sorry, Yeppy, I do not understand that comment. So we're just gonna move on from it. Really, I know there's not a lot of.
Feel free to DM me on Instagram. If there's like if there's some data issue, that would be, I really appreciate if you're flagging that for us. So feel free to DM me on Instagram.
Did you catch that? If you're still around, Yeppy, please do so. Help them keep their data set as clean as possible. TJ says, this is the problem with using the term shill bidding as a blanket term for a dozen completely different actions. Deceitful content creators like damn the cry man just latch on to these terms. So listen, I just hate I hate seeing the bickering, first of all, in the Sports Cars Live chat, but that's another the thing here though is that this might actually be informative here, because what this TJ Trail is saying is that there are a dozen different, completely different actions or scenarios that the hobby refers to, whether it's Dan or anybody else, as shill. I'm probably guilty of this too, refers to as shill bidding. So maybe we do need additional terminology so that we know what we're talking about. This is a hobby that is lacking a shared language in many different like areas of it, in many just different topics and categories. We think we have a shared language, but in many cases we are missing that. And perhaps shill bidding is one where there are different degrees, because it's really can be like almost like a continuum or a spectrum of types of nefarious bidding, types of behaviors that are similar to shill bidding, but are also like, I guess my thing is, are they manipulative? If any of those dozen different actions that TJ Trail is calling out here, if any of them, or if all of them are still bid manipulation, I don't really care if we're calling them all shill bidding. Like, that's just out of convenience. But if any of them are not bid manipulation, I think we need to segregate them out, carve them out, because they may not be as bad as shill bidding. But I don't know what those are. But I want to think about what I don't know so I can learn more. Dexflow says, is Card Ladder going to get comps from Probstein's new auction site?
Okay, that profile image is insane. That's
I didn't even notice it, but we'll leave it up.
So if something got left up. Second of all, yeah, we would love to, and Josh from Card Ladder and myself talked to Rick at the National. We saw a demo of his new product. Looks really exciting. We would love to get sales data from him, and but he's a busy guy right now. But we would love to be able to track the sales that they're going to be getting to.
Good stuff. Hey, Joe, anything on your mind? You're just sort of okay. Now we'll take that off the screen. Any thoughts on your mind, Joe, as we continue to just talk about the topics?
Not particularly. No, just I know it's an important topic, and if I'm being honest, I'm kind of over talking about it myself, but I know it's an important topic, and we should talk about it.
Absolutely. That's why we have a spotlight on it on the thumbnail here. 35 Auburn said, the hobby can speculate on a bidder's intent. The auction houses have access to the bidder's history. Ideally, all auction houses are using that information to benefit the legitimacy of their sales. This might be the best comment. And the reason I say that is because what it is calling for is cooperation between auction houses. Join forces, have like a committee where they are sharing their shill bidder list so that they can excommunicate people and talk about these things. Listen, I'm not trying to assign work to anybody, but maybe the hobby should assign work to these people who are in powerful positions. They have information that none of us do. And what I'm thinking is, like, if Fanatics Collect has bid history, like if they could show that Patrick Ryan or anybody else has bid on their own items repeatedly, more than once, on different days, whatever it might be, that's information that should be acted upon, right? And because you can also go auction house shopping. I'm going to set up an account here. Let's be nefarious and let's manipulate bids over there until we get caught. Okay, we're done over there. Let's go over here. Let's do it there. You know, that probably happens where people are just bouncing from auction house to auction house to get away with these things. So what do you, Chris, I saw you nodding. I mean, have you ever thought that there's an opportunity for auction houses to join together to try and fight the good fight against shill bidding and other forms of bid manipulation?
Absolutely. The thing that I leapt to sort of interject, but it's nowhere near as helpful as that would be. It's just that there are several marketplaces that have voluntarily cooperated with us to remove unpaid items, which is a small step. That's one small step for man here, but they've so for example, Fanatics is one of the marketplaces that once a month sends to Josh, our CTO at Card Ladder, a list of all the unpaid items, and we remove them. So that's a very helpful thing that they do. And the more marketplaces that would be willing to provide us a list like that at whatever cadence, if it could be once a week, once a month, if it could be even once every quarter, whatever, that would just go a little ways towards helping to clear things up. The longest way to go is creating a really harsh, a really stern context where if somebody does shill bid or do other things that induce that using other deceptive techniques to induce people to believe false information in order to separate them from their money, because that's what's happening here, the better. I think having at 35 Auburn sort of alluded to this, sort of having a harsh, setting an example could go a long way.
Yeah, setting an example, as long as they're setting the example on the person who, you know, had that malintent. You know, they really need good, because that's hard. It can be hard to get that evidence, you know, but it can also be very obvious. So as long as they do it properly. Dan the Cardman said they just need to implement stronger controls around KYC requirements, which is know your client, especially eBay. eBay's too big though, aren't they? Or isn't eBay too big? How are they going to do that? I mean, it would just have to be an automated form, just like they collect tax data maybe. But yeah, I think it's a great suggestion Dan makes here. I'm curious what the deeper sort of process would be. Not logistically, but like, what is that? What are those KYC controls? What are they asking? How are they monitoring? And how are they ongoing? How are they going to monitor that on a go forward basis? I can fill out a form right now. It's the situation as of today, October 25th, and tomorrow situations can change. So I wonder. And then TJ Trail says, what percentage of consigners do you think would place reserve bids? And he puts it in quotes on their consignments if they had the means to. So I don't know what you mean, TJ Trail, because do you mean put a reserve on the item, or do you mean make a bid, or do you mean bid on your own, like protectionary bids? I don't even know and maybe what TJ Trail is doing here is trying to show us that even the term reserve has many, many different meanings to different people. Maybe he's kind of playing games a little bit and saying, look, it's a tough, it's semantics in a way, but I'm curious what you mean by that, TJ Trail.
I think what he means is that if somebody is consigning a big card, but they really want to make sure it sets a record high price or it sells for a really high price, how many of them have the excess funds available in their bank account to be able to actually buy that card back if they win? That's how I interpreted it.
Could be. I'm not sure. Well, can't be sure. Not in TJ Trail's head. And then what's this? DR says, I wonder what we should call a player buying their own cards at high prices. We saw some wild prices with the MLB debut patch cards. That's just legit purchases. Like it's like Dick's Sporting Goods buying the Paul Skeens debut patch. Like, it's a legitimate sale. It's a legitimate sale. It's legitimately added to the comp database, but it is not instructive at all to your future purchasing decisions. It should not be relied upon. It's just a data point, but it's not something to be relied upon because it wasn't bought by a collector. It was bought for marketing purposes. Then you might want, but then you might want to say, hey, Dick's Sporting Goods, when you analyzed your purchase, what was the marketing spend and what was the investment spend? And if it was all marketing, zero investment, well, then the car's worth nothing to them. It was just marketing. It's going straight to their P&L, which is like a profit and loss statement. Simon466 said, I think Joe just implied we are shilling the topic of shill bidding. So meta. Simon Slab says, yeah, KYC, the same way the internet validates your age, right? Like that's got to be tough. It's got to be tough. Dan goes on to say, I mean, things of validity, such as how banks monitor AML, which is anti-money laundering. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so, I was thinking about the whole private sale thing earlier today. And I know that's been it's been a bit of a challenge lately. And Chris, you've been dealing with some of that, some issues around that lately. And one of the thoughts I had was like, and this, maybe it sort of ties into to everything else we're talking about, maybe not, but I'm thinking almost like an expiration date sort of thing. Like because I could easily, maybe not so easily, I could wire transfer some. I'm not going to use myself in this example. Let me use person A could wire person B $100,000, and person B could mail a card to person A, and they could submit that to Card Ladder's private sales and say, hey, look, we completed a private sale. Please add it. And Card Ladder could go through their rigorous process of verifying, and they're going to see that, okay, this looks good. But person A and person B could then a month later send the money back and send the card back, and then they can go off and sell their other cards to take advantage of that new comp, that new private sale. Card Ladder does a great job of saying, first of all, guys, this was a private sale. Second of all, these are the two guys that did it, that were party to it. And I think that is implying, if you are going to base any decisions you're making on that comp in the database, you might want to call these guys and find out, sort of like what happened here. You can follow up with them because they also have to have a social media account that you can reach out to these guys. My point is that maybe there's a control that could be put in place where, like, 6 months down the road, they need to prove that somehow that money never got reversed and that card is still in the collection of the person who bought it. Now, I'm sure this could be manipulated too, but I'm just trying to find ways to...
You're just kicking the can of manipulation down the road.
Yeah, you might just be pushing it down, but like...
And Jeremy, also, why only private sales? That can much more easily happen in the public sale setting. Much more easily. In the private sale setting, at least the way that we do it, somebody has to put their name on it. And then they have to submit the documents to us. And if those documents are doctored, or if they're submitted to us under false pretenses, and then those parties go on to use that information to induce somebody else to spend money, that checks all the criteria for fraud. So, and then in that particular instance, we have documented that whole thing. It's publicly documented. So if it turns out that somebody manipulated paperwork, or they pulled a fast one on us and they did a deal and then reversed it, and then as you said in your example, they use that comp to sell something else, or to create a valuation for something else, or to do any number of business ventures that ends up ultimately separating somebody from their money, that's fraudulent inducement. All right. That's clean and simple. And the difference is, if they're doing that inducement behind the anonymity of a public auction site where nobody ever knows who the buyer or the seller is, it's much easier to operate there. It's much more difficult to do it when we're forcing you to put your name and your social media account on it, and we're forcing you to show us those documents. We've created the paper trail of all of it. So if people start running afoul of that, and then they end up taking somebody for money, all the evidence is right there laid out in the public.
Yeah, that's like an auditable sort of trail right there. If people are going to commit fraud, in a way, I didn't really think of this before, Chris, but in a way, the fact that, like, if a fraudster is reporting a private sale to Card Ladder, they are basically hanging themselves if it ever comes.
100%.
Yeah.
I warn everybody about that too, Jeremy. Anytime somebody comes with me with a big private sale, I try to remember to warn them, look, when you make this public, the FBI might be looking at this. They have divisions in collectibles. The IRS might be looking at this. They're always looking to see what's, especially there's the whole, people report things to the IRS anonymously. When this stuff is made public, this becomes a public record for anybody to see. for anybody to see. And then, there's a very high profile private sale that people, I think, have rightfully criticized on a number of levels. And one of the, I'm talking about the Kobe $2.4 million exquisite sale. And there have been public comments by one of the members of Secure, Mr. Wonderful, suggesting that eventually they're going to tokenize this, or they're going to turn the Wondershine Index into an investable thing, however that might be. It seems like that's the goal behind it. Now, and I don't believe this to be the case, obviously, but if there is anything nefarious going on with the reporting of those transactions to us, which we have fully vetted, we've seen it, we tell people what we see. We see the invoice, we see the wire transfer. These are the things that we've seen. These are the people who are reporting it. In that case, the seller and the buyer, both of their names appear. We always require at least the reporting party to appear. In this case, the buyer and the seller appear. If they create a financial instrument out of that particular transaction, and it turns out that anything was afoul with the reporting of that transaction, those guys could be in big trouble for that with the SEC, with the FBI, with a number, and I'm sure Mr. Wonderful, among others, is very well aware of that.
Yeah, Mr. Wonderful, the syndicate, that's the new hobby body, the syndicate. I love it. I love referring to it as the syndicate.
And not to get nasty, because we don't go into this assuming the absolute worst, but these are things that maybe when people wonder, why is our private sale process the way it is? Why do we, like I appeared on Dustin's channel, and we talked a little bit about this maybe like a week and a half ago. And somebody in the comments was like, why would you require people to put their social media on it? That's weird. This is why. The transparency is incredibly important. It's very important. And also just for softer reasons, such as so that members from the community can follow up. So the members from the community know that, okay, well, this sale is reported by this person. We require you to have an active social media account specifically so that collectors can follow up with you, specifically so that they can send you DMs. They can say, hey, I see that, Card Ladder says you sent a wire transfer screenshot and an invoice. Is that true? Is that what you sent? Would you mind explaining to me what the intention behind this purpose is? What's the plan here? So that people can follow up and ask their own questions. That's why we do that.
Yeah, I think you guys go through. You have a great process. It's not infallible, but it's a great process. And I'd rather have the data than not have it. That's kind of where I land. And I also think that the current stewards of the data are the right stewards of the data, being Card Ladder and Chris, who I think kind of runs that program, if I understand correctly. So I'd rather have you running that and being that steward there, Chris, and following up, because I just feel that you are going to be going about it with the highest level of integrity. Yeah,
and not to belabor the topic, but I do strongly encourage people to avail themselves of the liberties of free speech that we enjoy, of the marketplace of ideas that is a consequence of the ability to have free speech, and that we can criticize things, we can scrutinize things, we can share concerns. I certainly hear it, and I take it very seriously. And people who might be critical of how our process works, or they don't understand it and they need more light shed on it, or they, even after they understand it, they still don't like it. That's fine. I take that seriously, and we're always looking to improve and make things better, but also criticizing the numbers itself to say, this doesn't seem right. This is off, or what's the intention here? And the intention, it's like a double-edged sword, because the members of the Secure team have alluded to the fact that this is an index. Eventually, perhaps it's going to be investable. So we sort of see that these aren't cards going into a personal collection. These are cards that are going to be turned into a product, an investment product, perhaps. Well, think about the Paul Skeens. Think about the Paul Skeens debut patch autograph deal. So I remember that happened. I'm pretty sure you and Adam covered that auction. That card sold for $1 million. Paul Skeens Bowman Chrome Super autograph, 1/1, which is understood by some to be one of his best cards. That sold for roughly 15% at its peak of what the debut patch autograph went for. So there was reason for people to be skeptical of this price. How is this? This is a rookie pitcher. And it's a pitcher. It's not a home run hitter. How does this guy in baseball have $1 million card? Well, and people expressed skepticism about it. People were curious. And then it turns out that a company purchased this card. And the company purchased the card not to put it into a personal collection. They didn't even purchase it as a dealer looking to add inventory to their showcase. They purchased it as a marketing device. They wanted a headline, they wanted a big sale, and they used that card as an attraction to recruit possible customers of sports cards or sports items or other things that people might come into Dick's for. They use it as an exhibit, as if it almost were a museum of sorts, to come look at this card, come in to their place. It's an attraction. That was the purpose behind that purchase. And once we understood that purchase and we analyzed it, now me as a collector, I'm not going to use that as a comp. That purchase wasn't somebody trying to put a card into their personal collection. That was something that was completely different. And this is big picture. I'm coming to the conclusion myself. I think others are coming to it as well, that we're headed in the direction of just like eye appeal, right, Jeremy, which is a wonderful movement that's been flourishing in this renaissance of vintage and pre-war content creators on YouTube. Just like we have eye appeal, where we scrutinize slabs and we say not all PSA 7s are equal. Same thing for comps. I come more and more to the conclusion that scrutinizing comps, what is the intention behind this purpose? Is this a business expense? Is this purchase being done for the purpose of creating some sort of financial product? Is this to create an attraction for people to come into my store? Is this going into a personal collection? What's the motive of the seller? What's the motive of the buyer? Bringing a little more critical thought when we analyze and contextualize comps, I think, is the wave of the future.
Agree, 100% agree. Not all comps are created equal. I've said that tons of times here. And, there's another scenario. Couple guys are, drunk on alcohol or drunk on love, whatever they might, just they're in a really good mood one night. And they decide that maybe they got a bonus, and they feel like, hey, maybe they got their first big paycheck of their life. I'm going to go buy myself something, and I don't care what it costs. Maybe I'm new to the hobby. Maybe I'm a professional athlete making tens of millions of dollars a year. I don't care what it costs. I'm going to buy it. And they pay. And now all of a sudden, the hobby feels like that's the value of the card. That it just isn't. Comps are, like Bobby Burrell said hours ago, they're not even a guide in a way. They're not even a guide. I think that's given them a bit more credence than we should. They are simply what other people thought should happen on a given day for a given card. Things are changing really fast. The fact that so much of the commerce in the hobby, and the reason why there's so much commerce driven by comps, is a lot of it has to do with the uprising of repacks and repackers and the agents of repackers buying at card shows, and all these, I pay 80%, I pay 90, 95, 100, 110, whatever it might be. That is why comps are all the talk, but they're simply data points. I don't even think they're a guide, Chris. Like I think that is even too much. I think they're still important. I think they are indicative of something. Does that make them a guide? Maybe, but I don't see it that way. I'm not exactly sure. We need to think it through a bit more, but comps are something to consider, but we shouldn't be slave to them. We should be able to say, you know what, or at least think for ourselves. But so many people don't. There's so much of the activity is based purely on comps that they have too much power, I think, in a way. What do you say to that? And anyone else, put up your hand if you want to say, but Chris, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I don't want to monopolize the time, and I'd love to pass the mic to others who might want to give some input on this topic. I just thought you hit it out of the park, man. Contextualizing comps is and taking back power, taking back control of our hobby experience by, comps can be helpful to us, but ultimately we decide. And if we're uncomfortable with the price, or if it doesn't make sense to us, we don't have to take that as gospel. We can exercise critical thought.
Yeah. Josh, you're muted. No, you're not.
Yeah. Like anything else in life, critical thinking is very important, especially if you're going to be spending money. You should think more than, and I think a lot of people, and it's not a criticism, but I think a lot of people, they will, in place of critical thinking, they will say, well, this card sold for this yesterday, so this is what I'm going to pay for it. And I think just kind of echoing what you all said, it's important to use it as like a piece of information, not the entire information. So, yeah.
Joe, thoughts from you?
Yeah, I'll take it one step further too. Even good comps, even comps that stand the test of, an auction where somebody wants it in their collection, there's still behind the curtain look at like, well, is that price justified? And that's going to have to do with other things, with the rarity, scarcity, the float, the set, the relevance, like where it is in the set. Just there's a lot more going on than just comps. So I'm happy we're talking about comps, but it's also good to talk about the stuff underlying the comps, to actually press and test to see if the comps, the good comps, even the really good comps, are justifiable. And that's one of the funnest parts of being in the hobby, is you get to do that yourself. You get to decide, actually, these comps are way low in relation to what I think this card is worth. Or in some cases, these comps are way out of control, even if they're good comps.
Yeah. The fewer the comps, the more spread apart they are, the less meaningful they are, I think, and the less reliance we should put on them. And then you can do things like triangulate and try and follow a player, how a player's overall performance has been over the last little while, one card relative to another. There's different ways to do it, but yeah, I think that the comps do exist on a spectrum of relevance and importance and reliability, and yeah, it's definitely an interesting topic, and it's let's go to some comments now. Let's go to some comments, and guys, put up a finger if you want to jump in anywhere. But Lucky here said Fanatics should offer plea deal to allow company that listed his cards. I'm just going to paraphrase a bit. Fanatics should offer a plea deal to allow the company, which is Acquire, that listed Patrick Ryan's cards for the past few years to disclose which auctions were listed. Then Fanatics can cross-reference and see how often. Maybe they'll do that. Sancho said, if nobody shill bid the stuff up, we would have no comps, and then we would not know how much to bid. I think that's got to be tongue-in-cheek. Sign and Slab says, are we really going to open the specific auction house vetting process? Where is AIH when we need them? Are we really going to open the specific auction house vetting process? Curmudgeon said, eBay is not too big. Big banks have to know their client, each client, and all transactions, and they are held liable criminally on all of them if the banks do, and the banks do trillions of transactions annually. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Curmudgeon. The only difference is that buying and selling sports cards is unregulated. Banks is all sorts of regulation, and it's also about funding terrorism and anti-money laundering and fraud and crime. Where we're literally the way the government looks. We're dealing with baseball cards now. The FBI does get involved sometimes, but I don't think we're about to move into a scenario where big auction companies like eBay have to have know your client procedures in place. Josh.
No, I mean, you just answered. You said I was going to say that banks have federal statutes that they have to abide by in terms of anti-money laundering act, FDIC disclosures. Although it's not a bad idea for auction houses, to have a know your client. I mean, it's not a bad idea at all. I agree with everything he's saying. It's just apples and oranges, kind of, because banks are federally regulated.
Absolutely. Question for Chris: do the PSA vault purchase offers end up being disclosed to you for comps? Well, it would be an offer accepted. I think an offer is not a comp.
Right. Very true. An offer is certainly not a comp. If a deal is made, the issue, but from our point of view, is that that's a private transaction that we don't have any access to. Now, if a party to that transaction wants to report it to us, we'll review it. And if PSA would like to set up a pipeline where they could feed us that data, we'd accept it. But what's very important to us is, either PSA can publish these to some public database if they would like to, and then in that case, it's public information and we can gather it. But if it's private and it's still fed to us, we require the consent of every party to every deal before we ingest a private sale, because we respect people's privacy. So if they do want to create a pipeline of private sales to us, then one of the requirements we have is that there needs to be consent as well. And so if people do want to see those the offer program purchases as data points in data tools, those are some of the ways that it could be done. But I would encourage you to direct that inquiry to PSA and or to the individuals who are engaging in it, if they'd like to report those sales. Those are the people who need to take the first actions in order to get that data to us and to other data tools.
Okay, good stuff. Brett, good day, lads. Cooking dinner and listening to the wise words of the panel. Good day, Brett from down under. Jahan says, honest people have nothing to hide. Hear, hear. Cardfuchsia says, how you broke down comps in your pod with your booth partner is spot on. He's referring to an episode here on Sports Cards Live YouTube channel called Booth Mates. I did with Sam Genova about a week and a half ago. And Sam's comment was, I don't look at comps. If I like the price, I buy it. If I don't, I don't. He doesn't even look at comps. I like that approach. Mr. Minty says, did Beckett Magazine have too much power? Because of, I absolutely think it had too much. I remember, and this is not so long ago, like literally 10 years ago, going into a card store, trying to buy a card from the guy who would not sell it to me until Beckett Magazine told him what to price it at. I'm like, you own the card store. You own the card store, and you're waiting for some guy down in Dallas. And I'm not talking about Dr. Beckett's long gone. You're waiting for some guy down in Dallas to tell you how much to sell a hockey card for in Canada. Are you serious? Grow a set, bro. Bob Boozle says they don't talk smart like this in Atlanta. Splenda here says critical thinking is overrated. Why think when I can learn from consequences? Mr. Minty said the comp is not an excuse for lack of negotiation. Yeah, I like that one. And Dan the Card Man says, my point on Know Your Client was simply for auction houses to verify identity before allowing account creation and bidding. You'd be shocked at how many don't require proof of identity until paying, if at all. Okay, that makes more. Thank you, Dan, for clarifying. Important clarification there. And yeah, I mean, that might be helpful. You have to send them a copy of your driver's license if you're going to bid. And if you're not willing to do that, then you're not going to be able to bid. Simple as that. All right. I'm at the bottom of the comments here, guys. Ben, you've been riding passenger for a while. Any thoughts on all this talk? Maybe your last comment on Sports Cards Live for quite some time.
No, very knowledgeable to listen in. I don't think I'm in a spot to where I can really comment on any of that, but I saw a lot of Labubu chatter in the chat there, so I can chime in on that at least.
You're never going to live that down, Ben. I think we got to take Okay, Ben, thanks for joining us on the show. You're right. I love that you showed it with complete confidence too. Yeah, Labubu. Well, thank you, Ben. Appreciate you being here and sticking it out. You could have left at any time, but it's always nice to have you on the show with us. So I'm glad that you were willing to stick around. Anyone else have? I mean, listen, we're 20 minutes into overtime here, but this has been a fun show, a very, very action-packed show. Lots of back and forth. Anyone have anything else they want to say about anything that we've talked about so far here? Anyone on the screen? Chris, Josh, or Joe? Joe's got the finger up. Let's hear from you, please.
Just real quick, I was curious because we had Topps Chrome release come out, basketball. I wondered if anybody had any thoughts or responses to the Topps Chrome basketball release. I haven't really looked at a lot. I've seen a few of them.
Nothing for me. I haven't even seen it yet. Josh is shaking. And Chris, how about you? No, nothing yet, Joe. Nothing yet, Joe. Maybe by next week, though. Maybe by next week.
Okay.
People seemed not interested, or at least in my area, when it hit the shelves this week.
Interesting. Bob Boozle says, I can confirm that Kevin Durant is combing his hair so far this season. And Mr. Minty says there is a way overprinting of Cooper Flagg's rookie cards. Simon 466 says, awkward question. Doesn't Chris Card Ladder belong to Collectors, which owns PSA? Well, I mean, Simon, are you asking the question, or that sounds like a rhetorical question? I think you know the answer to that, Simon, but go ahead, Chris.
Chris, the human being, does not belong to any company, sir. But Card Ladder, the company, does. He's 100% correct.
Yeah, I mean, I've been having Chris here on the show now for several months, and I can tell you that he does not let that impact his credibility, his authenticity, his transparency. He does often make disclaimers about, before I answer this, you need to know that I work for Card Ladder. Card Ladder is owned by Collectors, which is also the parent company of PSA. He said that on this show many times. And I know that, Chris, the funny thing is you say that, but like, I won't say you don't need to, but for anyone who has listened to you talk for as many years as I have knows that, that business arrangement does not impede your ability, your willingness to call things as you see them. So it's not an awkward question, Simon, but it's kind of like, are you trying to have a gotcha moment sort of thing?
Yeah, no, Jeremy, I really appreciate that. And I appreciate the question too. And it can't be stated enough that anything I say that relates to the topic of Card Ladder or the topic of data or the topic of PSA or the topic of its various enterprises, that there is very, very much should be an awareness of my potential for bias. I try to correct against it, but Lord knows I am certainly not perfect and I'm susceptible to bias.
And maybe Simon's actually just saying this to like.
He's got a follow up here. He's got a follow up here.
What does he say? Well, let me find it. I meant when Chris says someone should talk to PSA about ingesting PSA offers, can't he do that himself? I don't want to answer for you, Chris, but I almost
go ahead. What do you say, Jeremy?
Well, I just like don't you have enough to do? Like what?
Right.
What's going on? Like you want to talk to PSA? Go talk to PSA. Don't make Chris insert himself in the middle to do it.
And we have this is an internal communication, but it's no big deal. We have communicated with the folks who work on the PSA side of the offers program and told them that we'd be happy to bring those sales in. So that's already, we've established that to them, and that's why. But to your point, Jeremy, I mean we have no power there whatsoever, and I can assure you that Card Ladder is a low rung in the collector's universe, no pun intended. So if you, that's why I humbly encourage people that if they would like to see that happen, that power lies with PSA and the individuals who work within its offers program, who are great people. And I certainly encourage you to relay that to them.
USMNT says, Chris, tell PSA people don't like the upcharges.
I don't think I need to tell them that, but I'll put that in a note for my next meeting.
Simon says, I'm reading between the lines what Chris is saying. All right, guys. Well, I think we can wrap her up. Get your final comments in from the chat. If you have anything else you'd like to say, we can start our long process of ending the show. So we should be out of here in about 30 minutes, I would say. Just kidding. Josh, what's going on with you? What's going on at 90s auctions? When's the next 90s auction going live?
Probably second week of November.
Second week in November. So, and you will be coming to the Toronto Expo.
Yes.
Oh, you will be there
Friday to Sunday. Yep.
Yeah, but Thursday night, which is what's that? November the 6th, I believe, is the event that I'll be hosting with Grant Patterson from GP Sports Cards at Arizona's, which is a dining establishment. It's not in Arizona. It's by the Expo Center in Toronto. Come on by if you're there. Please come to our event. Their Upper Deck is sponsoring the appetizers. There will be some giveaways as well. I will be at booth 1707 at the Expo. Come see me there. You can even get the latest J. Lee 58 Tops hockey card. I'll give you guys a little glimpse of it right here. Oh, there you go. This one's been beat up though. This one's been beat up.
I'll take it.
Yeah, there's a beater joke.
Well loved, I think, is the turn of phrase we like here, Jeremy.
Well loved, exactly. So don't forget about that. Tomorrow night, I'll be back with the Fanatics Collect weekly hockey auction ending watch party. Excited to do that yet again. We'll see what I want to bid on, which I haven't been able to lately. We'll see. What else we got? Chris, anything going on at your end that you want to let people know about? And then we'll go to Joe and then to Ben, and then we'll go to comments and end this thing.
Great show. It's been, as always, a great round of discussion. The opportunity to engage with such a great community is unrivaled. And Jeremy, I noticed this on Thursday night show. I noticed it on tonight's show, and I don't know if it gets said enough, but the community you foster, the content you create, the entertainment you provide, the information you provide, the topic discussions you provide. It's a really special thing what you do in this hobby. I value it an enormous amount.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And especially on a night where I was not at my best. And my apologies to everybody impacted. Thank you, Chris. I'm gonna cut myself some slack and move forward. But thank you so much, Josh. We talked about 90s. Joe, what's going on? Anything you want to mention?
Well, just I wanted some acknowledgement for my tribute to the spite bidding hat, which
I just saw it.
Which might take us back to a different kind of bidding. I don't think that's shill bidding. That's spite bidding, where you're just like. And anyway, no, it's a great show, great community. I guess my takeaway from tonight is that people care, and that's usually when emotions get a little up, and so I think that's a good thing. That we care about our hobby, that we care about the ethics of the people in the hobby, and it will continue to talk about it, because that's what helps in this space to shed light and to be in it together. So thanks for the opportunities.
Oh, come on, you guys are as much a part of this as I am. Thank you very much, Ben. Final words from you. Aside from over.
Thank you to the chat. Obviously, everyone, I've had people reach out to me, from the chat over the course of my time coming on the stream. So appreciate all of you. Josh, Joe, Chris, Jeremy, thank you very much for the hospitality, having me on. I really appreciate it.
You bet, buddy. You bet. My pleasure. Laura says, thank you, Jeremy, guests, and chat bros, and sis, as always, very thoughtful, educational, and entertaining. Thank you, Laura. Linda's first. Great night. Thanks, Jeremy, and all the guests. Chat was awesome tonight. Thank you, Linda's first. Brad, thanks to the panel for spending their time with us tonight. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Mr. Minty. So much fun. Brad's vintage. Honest corners on that J. Lee card. Skeppy says, episode name idea, trimming the shill. Brett Miles, sexy corners on the J. Lee card. Thanks, Brett. Great episode. Thank you, Chris. Bob Boozle says, I love happy endings. Aw. Yankees fans says, always get my learn on. Thanks, everyone. Hoops Hobby Talk. Here. Cheers to Jeremy. Well, thank you, Hoops Hobby Talk. Cheers to everybody and the chat. Splendid says, ugh. Chris getting all meshy. Gross. Mr. Minty says, another great episode. Thank you, Jay Lee. You're welcome, Mr. Minty, Steve, and everybody else. Kinger says, that hat is fire, Joe. That hat is fire. Shout out to the spite bid. Brett Miles, very appreciative of those that move this hobby forward with their positive voices. Thank you so much. D7, sorry, I had to vent. Great show, gents. Thank you, D7. And Splenda says, the only thing I learned tonight was that Chris got a haircut. Yeah, that's the big takeaway tonight, guys. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'll see you again tomorrow. We'll see you back next week. Get ready, everybody. I can't go past Chris to Josh, but this episode of Sports Cards Live here on October the 25th, 2025 is now
over.
And with that, good night, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in and being a part of the Sports Cards Live community. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and most of all, keep collecting. More great content to come. Sports Cards is a lifestyle.